Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. Today is August 21st, National Spumoni Day. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis, and sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
We do have a reminder. Chaunce, I'll let you take this one. You've been spearheading this in so many ways.
Should we give like the full overview, the story, per se?
Yeah, we should, but that was me probing you to talk about your diarrhea.
I'm unwell at the moment. We're not sure why. It's been a rough 24 hours for me and my butt. And I'll leave it at that. But
do you suspect it was something you ate?
That is on the list of culprits.
Do you have any like raw chicken chicken tartare as a snack? I
didn't have raw chicken. I had Domino's for dinner last night. We're like mid-move right now, so it's all just like chaos food. And then I had leftover hibachi for lunch, and then I had a Starbucks like fridge frap coffee for breakfast. So it could be any of those three. It could also just be like the moon and the star alignment. I don't know.
Your body's excited for today's guest.
Yes, it could be a number of things. Stress.
Probably the guest, though.
Probably the guest. Yeah, so I'm running on low sleep.
Stress-induced diarrhea thing?
I think so.
Yeah? I guess that makes sense.
I mean, I can't say it's happened to me enough to be like, that is from my stress.
Yeah.
But I think stress can make you do all kinds of crazy things.
It makes perfect sense. I feel stupid questioning that. But can you think of any key examples in your life where you were getting ready for a thing and then all of a sudden, Squirt City?
No, I don't think so. But the reason I would say stress is because with all the moving stuff, that it could just be like my body rejecting the act of moving.
Yeah. I
don't know. Well, yeah, if I get up and leave during the YouTube video, you guys know why.
Sure.
But on that note, reminders of any kind. This one will not be a new reminder if you follow us on Instagram or any of the socials. But if you don't, then this will be a new reminder for you. And it's that me and Zach are in the process of gathering stories of people's poop stories. Because we're going to put together a book called Pooping in the Woods, a collection of stories. And this was a accidental idea that spawned on April Fool's Day. Basically, I was trying to think of something that was believable enough for people to fall for it, but not believable, but not like so... What am I trying to say? Not so far in the realm of jokey jokes that it was just like, Backpacker Radio doing a social for April Fools.
Sure. Yeah, I think that is the thread of a good April Fool's joke, is it has to be somewhat believable to, at least there has to be some element of believability for it to stick.
Yeah. So I was between Zach succumbing to dad life and giving away all his extra gear. And I had a collection of Zach's gear photos from over the years that I was going to post and have people like email him which piece they wanted and why. Just to flood his inbox. But then I figured that wouldn't be believable enough and potentially cruel, given that the twins were just born and he was going to have a backlog of emails as is. So my next idea was that we are putting out a book called Pooping in the Woods, a collection of stories, and we were doing like one final round for call-outs for people's stories. And we got a lot of submissions.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all that people are into this. There was that time a couple years ago where I just had one extra, I think a Patagonia shirt or something laying around that I couldn't sell. It was like an off size or something. And I said I'd give it away to the person that had the best poop story, thinking I'd get like 5 submissions. And I think we got over 100 submissions. So we definitely struck a chord here with the backpacking world about their affinity for poop stories. And yeah, we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to make an awesome book. Release date very TBD at this point.
Yeah.
But we want you guys to be a massive, heaping, steaming part of this amazing project.
Yeah. And ideally, like, these are outdoor nature trail related poop stories. I mean, like, you can send us the time you were at your office and you shat yourself in front of your boss. It would be like an outlier in terms of the genre of story that we're using.
That might be for our own personal entertainment, but
yeah,
probably not appropriate for pooping in the woods.
So we've got a link that you can submit a story through in the bio of our Instagram at Backpacker Radio, or you can email your story to us at podcast@thetrek.co. and we're really excited to read them. The ones we've gotten so far have been fantastic. We are leaving submissions open for a while because we want to make sure that we're getting the best of the best, and we know no one has good poop stories like hikers do.
Yeah. And you might be wondering, well, what's in this for me?
I was wondering just that.
Yeah. Well, we don't actually know the full answer to that question, but at minimum, they will get an advance copy, a signed advance copy. So you'll be one of the first to receive this. It'll be signed, and obviously your story will be moralized for generations to come.
Yeah, and we've had some people submit it with their regular name. We've had some people submit under their trail name, and we've had some people submit under please do not use my name under any circumstances. So you can let us know when you submit yours what level of anonymity you would like to go under, depending on how mortifying your story is. So yeah.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not beat around the bush anymore. Let's get right to today's interview with Heidi Nisbett. Nesbit?
Yeah.
Sweet. Fuck, let's go. An experienced thru-hiker and artist with a BFA in painting and printmaking. Heidi has hiked the AT, South Carolina's Foothills Trail, twice, parts of North Carolina's Mountain Sea Trail, the Superior Hiking Trail, Pinhoti Trail, and parts of the CDT. She currently guides hikes for Blue Ridge Hiking Company, and she joins us here in studio. Heidi, thank you so much for being here on Backpacker Radio.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a long time coming. We've been volleying emails now for like 2 or 3 years, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sure.
Are you still, I remember you had reached out asking if we could go to a brewery in Charlotte. Are you still working with them?
I'm minorly involved, but not nearly as much as I was at that point in time. But
Yeah.
like definitely, I still get invited to the employee meetings, so I feel like I'm like in the club still.
That's all you want because there's free beer at that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So is it safe to say that you are a beer connoisseur?
It's safe to say that I know how to pretend to be a beer connoisseur.
That's all.
Yeah,
Just
that's all
faking
that
it until you
matters.
make it, for
Mhm.
sure. Okay, what's the top type of beer that you're digging right now? What's the word for wine? Is
Yeah.
varietal. What's style of
Yeah.
beer?
Ooh, I like wheat beers, light beers. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite wheat?
There's a White Zombie is one made by Catawba Brewing. That's a big brewery in the Carolinas. So that one you tend to find everywhere. So that one gets ordered a lot.
I have found myself drinking a lot of Oberon recently.
Mhm.
That's a good summer beer.
Yeah.
Bell's Oberon. Okay, let's get into the backpacking stuff. What is the trail name? I don't have that in my intro here. And no, I actually know this. I'm blanking on it. I know the trail name. Tell us the trail name and what's the origin story.
Okay. So Sketch is what I introduced myself as. It was Picasso on the AT and for a very long time after. So a lot of people know me as that too. And then just one day, well, every day I was like, I just don't like my trail name. And then finally decided that I was just going to start introducing myself as Sketch and Said. That's my Instagram and business name is Sketching Summits. So that's what like just as many people would know me as Sketching Summits as Picasso. And I don't like Pablo Picasso anyways. So I was like, I'm not going to be named after some boy I don't like. And so
What don't you like about Picasso?
Either one. No, he was just a little bit like misogynistic and
Was he?
aggressive and just I like what he did for art history, but I don't like his art, you know. And when I got named at Springer, right, and Picasso, and then they were like, because I was painting in the shelter in a sketchbook, and I was like, really, you guys can't think of any like female artists that would be like a more appropriate name, and it was just crickets from a shelter of like 30 people.
Yeah.
And then I just thought that I had to keep it because that's what they told me, and then however many hundred of miles later, I'm like, wait a minute, people have been changing their trail names left and right, and then start working for Jen, for JPD, and it's just like she named herself, like I'm gonna name myself.
Yeah.
Pull the.
I am extremely art ignorant. What did Picasso do for art history? Aside from, I obviously know that he's one of the most famous artists of all time, but did he do something to advance?
He just kind of came around at the right sort of point in time when so basically once photography started, art stopped having to be so much about documenting your surroundings because cameras existed to do that, and art became you can just be wild and weird and creative, and so there's a number of artists in that kind of turn of the century movement. But he was definitely one of them to just be like, what if I put the nose on the side of the face? And what if I do it this way? What if I do it this way? And really kind of just challenge the status quo a lot. So obviously that's great. We needed that. But I'm over it.
Yeah. Thinking outside of the box, but also being nice to women too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were sketching at the first shelter on the AT. Was this an intention of yours to do at every shelter log?
Yes and no. I didn't make any like super concrete goals with it. I studied art, graduated, and then I broke up with art. Like I just had a really hard time maintaining that practice outside of the college setting, and really guilt tripped myself over that for whatever the 3 or 4 years between college and the AT. And so I did kind of last minute decide to bring a sketchbook. Or I think I was going to bring something, but then last minute decided to bring watercolors, which I had never worked with before, and then was like, okay, but no pressure. Like, do what you want to do. And then when I got like a trail name that was based off of painting, I was like, okay, so a little bit of pressure, and that's part of why I like let it stick. But I did paint every day, definitely for the first few weeks. And then as the miles increased, the number of paintings started decreasing. So you can see, like, especially when I get into the Mid-Atlantic area, flipping through the sketchbook, because I would do a journal entry every single day too. So it used to be like journal entry, painting, and then it would be like 8 journal entries, 1 painting, 8 more journal entries, 1 painting.
Yeah. How long do these paintings take you?
An hour or two. Yeah.
I mean, that's commitment. Like, nobody's doing anything sticking to their craft last minute. I shouldn't say nobody, but that's a very rare form of dedication.
Yeah, it's, it's fun. It's something to do, especially when the days are longer, or when the days are short and cold and freezing and you're just sitting in your sleeping bag with nothing. On trail, I like to paint from observation. So that's just like, just a lot of trees. And I think that became part of it too, where it was like, I would love to stop mid-hike and paint, sitting at Killington or whatever it is. But I want to get to where I'm going. I want to eat dinner. I want to, be with my friends or whatever it is. But then you're in camp and it's like, okay, another shelter, another bunch of trees. Maybe I'll draw a person sitting in the shelter. But I think it's a more authentic, like, documentation of the experience that way. Just had a lot of really authentic moments from that.
Is it tough to maintain a social group when your breaks are 1 to 2 hours to do this art project?
So that's why I would mostly paint at camp. Like, I wanted to, like, early on when I was hiking alone, quote unquote alone. I would stop at like I have a painting of Charlie's Bunyan. Was like the first like warm sunny day in the Smokies, and I just like sat up on that like pointy rock and painted for like probably like 2 hours for that one, because I was like, it's nice out and you can feel the sun here. I don't want to go back into the woods. But then definitely when I started hiking with people, it's just like, I mean, your whole hiking style changes, you know, because you want to be with your friends. And
you mentioned after graduating with an art degree that you broke up with art. Is that a common thing for people with your degree?
I feel like it.
I have an art degree.
Yeah, I was going to ask Sean.
So
here you are podcasting. You're the true artist.
Graphic design.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
How much of that is in your job now?
I do sales.
Okay, yeah. And it's fun.
So I've been getting like an itchy, like, be creative feeling, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
I feel like there's a more linear approach to the corporate world with a graphic design degree as opposed to just like a blanket art degree.
Well, I didn't love freelancing. That was like the first thing, is because I didn't really know how to like set boundaries in contracts with clients that would hold them to time constraints and make it like a workable position for me. Because a lot of the times you get people who will come back for like unlimited iterations, and then if you've already set your price and you don't have a cap on how many revisions you're willing to do, then it snowballs from there. Or if you don't have a time constraint on, this project wraps at this point, and if it goes over, this is the stipulation, then like I had one client who was just like sporadically sending me stuff for 3 years and just wouldn't get the project done, and I really burnt out from that. And I think wanted to get away from it. And it comes in waves where, like, if you feel yourself having to be forced creative, you almost pull back and don't want to.
Sure.
So I think it's just taking it when it comes and letting go of it when it doesn't.
Yeah. That's why there's definitely a catch-22 to getting a career that is in your hobby, because it can kill the passion for the hobby. But this is not about us. I want to hear about Heidi's journey.
You wanted to interview me, right, Heidi?
Yeah. No, I was curious, though, because I knew that you did have a bit of a background in it, and I wasn't sure what that history was. But yeah, like, to exactly that point so when I decided to study art, my logic was I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, so might as well study something fun. and had no intentions of being an artist. And for us, our program was divided. There was a graphic design and illustration program that was like, here's how to make money doing this. And then there was fine art, and this was like, here's how to not compromise your craft for money, and like, but also like use the most expensive materials because we're not compromising our craft. Which, oh gosh, that sounds really venomous. I loved my college experience, but it was very like, I left very much feeling like the only next step that they really prepared us for was getting an MFA, and then you teach, and then it was just kind of like it was a pyramid scheme. Who knew? Yeah. And so I knew, like, going through college, like, I did not have any intention of being an artist when I grew up. And here I am, like, kind of sort of making a living doing that. So it's interesting. But it just seemed really hard. And a lot of, there's just so many preconceived notions about it. And a lot of them are true. It's hard to make money that way.
Yeah.
Or, like you were saying, like, it's really easy to get burnt out or to, do it, like, for clients and have to like do based on what they're telling you, and work around those like challenges and stuff. So I graduated and still had no idea what I wanted to do, worked like a few different desk jobs. I did end up working for an art museum for a while, and I was kind of like, oh, that'll be like the direction I go, and like, kind of worked in events, which is fun. Events are fun. And then just it wasn't a good fit. So I just had 2 jobs after college that both I was just like, ugh. Like find people to work with or find situations, but just wasn't for me. And so outside of not having it as some sort of income source, it just couldn't figure out like what the goal was to create. Like, what did I want to make? I got burnt out with the sort of style of art I was doing through college, and kind of felt like I said what I needed to say with that and didn't know where else to go with that. And so then it was like, I'd dabble, like I'd make some collages and stuff a little bit, but just really there was no goal there. So I didn't really know. And then I would really beat myself up over it. It's like, this has been such a big part of my identity since I was like in elementary school. Like I was like, wanted to be the artsy weird one, and just didn't have anything to do with that. And so definitely fell into a bit of an identity crisis when I had nowhere to like channel that creative energy.
You kind of answered my next question, but yeah, I guess when did art stand out as something that you were exceptionally talented in?
Ooh, I don't know about talented, and that probably took like a hot minute, but definitely enjoyed it. Like I was just like the one to like lock myself in my room and draw. I had a group of friends in like middle school who like we all kind of like collectively got into anime together, and I never like watched the shows or followed the storylines, but I was like, oh, the art's cool. And so that's when I started like independently doing stuff, because that's around the time that school stops letting you, like your project stopped being coloring. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to like continue this on my own. And then, really gravitated towards that like through high school as well.
Do you come from artsy people? Because I've noticed there's got to be at least a component of it that is genetic, because I can't even, my handwriting is illegible. I can't say that word right now. Illegible. There we go. Thank you. And that translates very well to my ability to draw anything. It's just like what my brain sees cannot translate to what my hand is able to do.
I'll fight you on that. I don't think so. I'll
draw something for you. It'll be very funny.
Well, I think it's like anything else. If you do it long enough, you get better at it. I think there's a personality type that's more inclined to have the patience, so my siblings were both like a lot more athletic and energetic than me, and so like they're not gonna sit still long enough to draw the same drawing 15 times and watch it get better in one sitting. And then I was a lot more of like a focused sort of energy. Yeah, no, they were shit for the first like several years, like looking, and I see like kids now that were like the same age, and I look at like my sketchbooks from the same age, and I was like, man, I just had, confidence for no reason. Just kept doing it and had a lot of fun with it, and just kind of didn't really care about the results. But there again, too, like I'm very musically untalented, and I have the same thing that you just said, where I'm like, no, it's genetic. Like I will never be able to sing or like understand what something being in key is.
Yeah, sure.
And then I had a friend who, has a background in singing, and she's like, no, it's the same as art. If you put the time and energy into it, if you, seek out the resources to learn how to do better at it, then you can get better, which is really exciting for me as a horrible singer. Because like if a genie came out of a bottle and granted me 3 wishes, the first one would be like, let me get through a karaoke night without embarrassing myself.
Yeah. I actually think I agree with your original statement. I do think everyone's got different ceilings. I think the practice helps you achieve that ceiling, but I'm not going to be Taylor Swift at any point, even if I practice 24/7.
Yeah. I mean, even her, if you listen to her music when she was much younger, like you can see how much better she got.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. At what point were you getting positive feedback from others about your artwork?
I thought I was getting positive feedback when I was in like middle school, but mostly I think I was just getting attention. I'd like walk around with I would draw a picture and like fill a sketchbook, like a spiral sketchbook. And then if I had a drawing that I felt like was better than the other ones, I would fold the sketchbook back on itself and carry it around in my arm, like cradle it, so that the good drawing was on the outside. And I would pretend
this whole thing?
to be drawing. Yeah, exactly. So it's just, and I'm sure people weren't actually complimenting. They're like, "Oh, you draw a lot." Thanks. I know. So just, stroking my own ego.
Yeah, that's funny.
What role do you think, if any, did social media play in finding your way when you got back out of the art absence? Because I feel like for me, when I graduated college, that was just when Instagram was starting. And that was when you were taking pictures of your socks or a cup of coffee. Right. It wasn't as a way to market. And I think that was something that was really interesting about, at least when I went to college for art, was that it kind of left a confusion of, like you said, what do you do next? Because it wasn't really selling your prints on certain places or taking something you paint and then turning it digital and then, having all these different options of places you can market it to a certain audience. It was more, I made this one thing, who am I going to give it to? And I spent this many hours on it. How am I going to price it that it's worthwhile? And it caused a lot of confusion. But I feel like with social media, there's such a great way to be able to show what you're doing and the processes behind it. And I think that's something that's really cool about your Instagram, is just being able to follow that.
Yeah, exactly. I think exactly what you just said. It had a pretty big gradual impact over, just encouragement. People are stoked, so you just kind of keep doing it because you're getting positive feedback. I was going to say something along those lines and I forget what it was. My Instagram got, I took it more seriously once I started hiking the AT, which is in 2018. So this is 5 years ago. And it went, from here's a bowl of Captain Crunch to if I post something cool, people respond to it. And so started paying a little bit more attention and being a little bit more consistent at that point. I remember what I was going to say. No, in college when we took a class senior year of business or whatever, they even told us not to link our social media on our websites because it felt unprofessional. And I was like, what? That's the best free resource of marketing that you can get.
Yeah, what terrible advice.
Yeah, I mean, just old,
it was new.
Old
people didn't understand. Yeah.
And then I didn't. I keep losing my train of thought here. I don't know. I keep going. Ask me another question. I forget where I was going with it.
So I want to work through this chronologically. So you graduate with the art degree, you spend a couple years working at the art museum trying to find a career path in art that you enjoy. Take me through that period to the start of the AT. What happens between those times?
So I got the idea for the AT when I was so my first job out of college, I worked for the university as an admissions counselor, and lived in Rock Hill, South Carolina, where I went to school, and just all my friends moved away, and it was I was just lonely, and not really sure where I was going. And then got the job at the art museum, which is why I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I moved up there and was back burner this random, totally out of left field idea to hike the AT because I didn't have any hiking or backpacking, outdoorsy, anything experience. Before that, it was just a thing that I decided one day on a long drive, I'll do this one day. And started to plan it a little bit and then got a job opportunity at an art museum. And I was like, no, this is what you should focus on. This is what you went to school for. Here's an opportunity to work for a nice modern art museum in the city. Let's take that route. And then moved to Charlotte for it. And quite frankly, just was misled about the position and the pay and the benefits. And by misled, I mean lied to my face. And so like within a few months realized the reality of the situation. And then I was like, well, screw this, you know, like I'm going to go back to plan A. And so that's when I got like, I mean, I started pinching pennies. I was eating ramen and peanut butter jelly, nothing else. Like I was working for an art museum. I'm not making much money. And so just really started saving money. And I got a job at a paint and sip studio. This is what I was getting at earlier. So I started teaching like the paint, like the wine and sip, step-by-step classes. And then that's what I started paying attention to, like fun art, like not fine art, but like something fun, something, you know, that catches people's eyes so that they want to paint. Like maybe it's like cheesy, but you know, it's just fun. And then that's when I started paying attention to other Instagram artists who are doing these like mountainscapes, and I'm getting into hiking at this point. And I'm like, okay, how do I get into, like, I never was attracted to landscape art in a more like traditional landscape, but then started seeing these really colorful, like different approaches to landscape art from this like caliber of artists that like I'll call Instagram artists. Like that is totally their platform. And so I was channeling that into this paint and sip studio, and that was a really fun job. It was like mom and pops, like privately owned, and they let us like make the paintings for the classes. Some of the franchise ones, they're all like pre-established paintings. And it was a bar too. And so like the class would only be 2 or 3 hours of my shift, but my shift would be, you know, 2 or 3 hours before and after the actual class. And I would just get to sit there and like paint and like come up with things that would work well for that setting. And so that was a fun like kind of shift in like where I was directing that creativity.
Walk me through the setup of a paint and sip. So I understand, roughly speaking, people are painting and drinking wine, but like, are you painting something and then recreating it for the class, or? Yeah,
so there's an example painting already up, and then I have a canvas, and then I'm showing them step by step. So you'll have a class of like 10 or 15 people, and I'm like, okay, you're going to need these colors, and then you sit down, and then we're going to start by like putting this background in, and you're going to start with white, and then you're going to blend this in, and you really got to put it in layman's terms. Like most of these people haven't painted before, or haven't painted since like, you know, middle school or elementary school. And so you're like, this is how you clean your brush, and this is what you do here, and really give like a step by step of how to paint this wine glass or whatever it is that you're painting. And they're drinking like while they're painting, and they're having fun. Like the point is for them to have a good time. It's a popular thing for like bachelorette parties or like girls night out.
It sounds like fun to me. So
yeah. No,
I'm sold already.
It was a blast. Yeah. Keep that in mind for your next bachelorette party.
Yeah, I definitely will.
We can do that for our next meetup. We can do a
Patreon episode.
Ooh, yeah. I could lead you in a paint and sip.
I love it.
Okay, let's do that.
It's fun.
Done.
And you get messy, and you just get to like, you know, and it's hard to like. And I do painting workshops now too, and it's like break that barrier of like, I can't draw a stick figure, like I'm not good at it. It's like, it doesn't matter. Did you think about work for the last 2 hours while we worked on this? No. Did you have fun? Like, yeah. The more you drink, the better your painting looks now, at least, you know, maybe not tomorrow.
Sounds like the perfect teaching job for people that don't like kids either. Like you get to drink and teach people.
Yeah, but drunk adults can sometimes be worse than kids.
That's true.
What are some tips that you have that are like maybe not obvious to the non-artist that make it really easy to make your stuff look better? Do you have any?
I probably don't. I don't really know if I could come up with like a top secret thing that I've been hiding from the world, but like practice makes perfect. So just like the more you do it, and then genuinely like the less you care about the result, and the more you indulge yourself in the process, and then you're paying attention to like the process part of it and the mark making and just stuff like that. I do watercolor workshops with the guiding company, and so we talk about things like atmospherical perspective, things that are farther away from you or lighter in value, which I'm in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so that's very perfect textbook example. Farther away, they're lighter and bluer because there's more atmosphere between you and that. And so like paint those mountains light blue, and then they get darker and greener as they get closer to you. Craft is like, you know, like be neat about it. Like don't get fingerprints all over it. Like that, just being neat and like organized kind of with it. I feel like personally it goes a really long way of just like having, you know, sometimes I'll do like a tape frame around the edge of the paper, paint inside that, and then peel that tape up and have that crisp line around the edge. It just like makes it feel professional and cleaner regardless of what the image turned out like. So stuff like that. But mostly just do it, and then the more you do it, the better you get. It's like anything else.
I think I sidetracked you when you're talking about being inspired by some of the other Instagram artists on seeing some of like these more big sky landscape type designs and how that inspired you going into the AT. I think that's where I derailed you at some point.
Yeah, that's where we were there at some point.
Yeah. But I guess because this is so fundamental to the style of art that you're doing now, walk us through how you were turned onto this and eventually stuck with it.
I think I just, it was easy to incorporate into that paint and sip scenario, which was like the only sort of creative practice I'd had for a few years. And then going onto the AT, I guess that like kind of stuck with me and just found like success or positive response from the paintings that geared towards that style. But there again too, like I haven't put a lot of, like there was a period of time where I was like trying to stylize it into this, like to fit into this block-based stuff of what I was seeing other artists doing or like what I was attracted to and stuff. And then just at the end of the day, it's like, just do what organically comes to you. And so have like the style that I'm more in now is just like very natural. And it's just like, that's how I paint the thing because that's how it comes out when I paint it. Not because I'm trying to, but just because those are the colors that I have, and that's how, I don't know, that's just how it comes out.
And how would you describe your art today? I lack the vocabulary to do it any justice, so I'd like to hear it in your own words.
Oh, I'd be curious to hear yours. Colorful. I used to use the word psychedelic, but I think it's shifted a little bit more. I don't want to say realism, but away from like hyper stylized in that way. But colorful, vibrant, hiking inspired mountainscapes is kind of the tagline that I use. I use watercolor paints, but I was never formally trained in watercolor, like didn't really touch it in college, and did oil painting in college, which is obviously water and oils, like they're completely different. Went into watercolor painting, not like, I think what people think of with watercolor painting is very water heavy, and it's like, it bleeds a lot, and it's really hard to paint that way. You have no control, and you just have to like let the paint do what it does and then work with that. And those kind of artists are so talented, and I can't like even imagine what that's like. I use watercolors on the AT just because they were so packable, and I just kind of colored with them, right? So I would draw the picture in pen and color, okay, this sky is blue, hammock is red, whatever. And then taking that home and trying to make more like art that's outside of a sketchbook, I just like pretend that the watercolor paints are oil paints and just like blob them on really thick, which is not what you do with watercolors. And I think because I don't have a formal background in watercolor, that's where the style has like originated from, of me just being really stubborn and not wanting to go back to oils because they're too messy, and just really trying my best to pretend that watercolor paints are oil paints.
Yeah. So not having a formal training background in that, it plays to your advantage because it gives you a unique style.
Sure. Yeah. We're going to go with that.
Because the amount of detail that you're able to get into your paintings is incredible. Like that's not what I would expect with a watercolor painting.
It's different. Yeah. A lot of that at this point too is like patience, so looking at some of my older work, you don't see that. And then eventually I was like, if you just give yourself 20 hours to paint that rhododendron bush, it's going to like look different. And so that's what a lot of it is now too, is just like, just take your time, which my husband like, you could just do it less detailed and it would take you less time and you could sell it for the same price. And I'm like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's funny. So how did you get turned on to long distance hiking? Like, where did you transition from art gal to hiking gal?
I got a dog. She's awesome. She's so cool. Her name is Junie B. Jones. She's so cute.
Junie B. Jones?
Junie B. Jones. Johns gets it. Do you get it?
No.
Judy B. Jones.
There's a series of like kids books that follow a kindergartner, and her name is Junie B. Jones. It's like a Pippi Longstocking sort
Judy.
of character.
Is it Junie?
Junie, Junie,
Huh.
yeah.
All right, well maybe I don't get it then. I thought it was Judy this whole time.
I bet if you Googled it, you would recognize the images. So she's named after that. So I got her, when I was 23, 22, something like that. And she was super hyperactive. And the only way I could get all of her energy out would be to go for a hike. So I used to like go for a 6-mile hike before work just to so that she wouldn't destroy my house while I was at work.
Yeah.
So that was like a start to it. You know, I was dating a guy at the time that was like just a degree more outdoorsy than me, that I felt like if he was like, oh, let's go camping, I was like, yeah, we won't get eaten by bears if I go with you. Let's do that. And then, but what really put the bug in my ear was my brother's track coach from high school. Technically also my track coach, but I was such a pathetic addition to our track team. So my brother was like the superstar. So it was, you know, he went to state every year. And so our family was like close to her because of how like involved he was in the sport. And she's just a badass. Like she is just like, you know, like she scared me. She was so badass. And she, on a whim, decided to hike the AT. She did 900 miles of it. She broke her foot in Mahoosic Notch. And had to come home early, but she did 900 miles of it. I think like, you know, 55 or 60. I forget how old she was. And I just was enamored with it. I was like, that is so far out of anything that I feel like I could personally do, and was just at this very directionless part of my life where I just like wanted a goal and wanted something to work towards. I wanted a direction, and north sounded great. So I just, you know, kind of fixated on that and sort of went down that rabbit hole. And I think just because it was so far from anything I had done, the challenge of it is what appealed to me the most. I like hiking. Like we grew up in upstate South Carolina. We did hike. Like there are mountains in South Carolina, and we hiked them, and it was fun. Like I always enjoyed that, but just never more than like, you know, maybe a 6-mile day hike or something like that. But camping really scared the crap out of me. And so I just wanted to like take that on. I called it my quarter life crisis.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
I think it's a fairly common story for sure.
Yeah.
So you got into the outdoors because you had a dog that you had to exercise, and then you found the AT. What was your longest hike prior to stepping foot on the AT?
I don't really know miles, but like maybe 4 days.
Okay, so you've done backpacking trips.
I tried multiple 5-day trips and never quite hit it. So that was like fun to start the AT. Like, well, let's go for 6 months. We can't even get to 5 days. But a big part of that was I thought I was going to hike with Junie. Everybody was like, you don't hike with your dog. Like, just don't. And I was like, no, you don't get it. Like, she's my soul dog. Like, we're going to. And then, you know, I did a lot of shakedown hikes with her, and she was always the reason that we actually had to end it early. Just like overexertion, or just with gear and stuff, and it just didn't work. And I did a shakedown hike in the Grayson Highlands like the September before my thru-hike started. And we ended that one early. She almost got kicked in the face by a pony. You know, it was like, it was the perfect trip to really set me up for like, don't hike with your dog on this one. And I'm not saying don't hike with your dog, but like just my very minimal experience level going into a 2,000-mile trail is like not. We have since. We hiked Superior Hiking Trail with her, so she did a 300-mile trail. She's a badass, but just me alone in charge of her when I can hardly even know how to take care of myself. It was like, let's not do that.
Sure. And I think a lot of people don't realize how limiting doing something like the AT with a dog can be. Like, people don't want you in shelters. There's a lot of the hostels that you can't stay in.
Grocery shopping. Like, how do you grocery shop or eat at a restaurant?
Right. Yeah. So it just adds a whole lot of logistic burden that if you're not prepared for, can make the trip very hard. So tell me about the evolution of your art as you hike north on the AT.
It got like, I don't know how much that, it was really a documentation process and less of a like, it was more for the documentation and less for the art. And so like there was a lot of it that, you know, I just really appreciate those sketchbooks, not because there's anything that good, you know, from that perspective in there, but just because they felt like a really authentic reflection of the experiences that I was going through. So like an example I'll give is, you know, I had like all these issues with shoes in my feet like the whole time, and had really bad blisters from these one pair of shoes, got to the NOC and sat down with the guy for like, it was like 2 hours. We tried on every pair of shoe insert combination, and he sent me out in Brooks, and, you know, I felt really confident in it. And then you do that hell of a climb out of the NOC, and I get to whatever that shelter is up there, and I've got blisters again on the inside of my, now in a whole new spot. And it was raining and it was cold, and it was just like, I just sit down. Like, I think that was my first like full on, what do you call midday meltdown,
Yes.
late day meltdown, just like crying in the privy, like, don't talk to me, I've got blisters. And so like my drawing from that day is this like chicken scratch, like blind contour, like just like these freaking shoes and the laces and the X's, and it's like I almost ripped the paper and I just like blob down color, and like you can't even really tell that they're shoes, but that's like, it's just such a authentic representation of my experience. Additionally, like, as you know, as hiking got easier, the paintings got more forgiving, and as the miles got longer, the paintings got less frequent, and then as the weather got nicer, the paintings got more frequent, or I'd do more like double page, like, you know, down the center line or whatever, paintings, because it was nice to sit out. You know, in the winter, a lot of it's just like you're in your sleeping bag, like with your headlamp, just like, I started March 10th. It was very cold.
Yeah, March 4th girl over here.
Yeah, why?
Stupid.
How did we do that? Yeah.
I was going to start in February. Zach said not to.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, my advice for anybody who I hear that hikes AT, I'm like, start in April. If you're going northbound, just wait. You'll still get snowed on, I promise.
Well, if you come from like the north, like I'm from New York, you have this preconceived notion of the South as being hot. Like the South is Florida, Georgia is Florida, North Carolina is Florida. Like the weather there is all Florida weather, and then you get there and it snows and you realize you're an idiot.
Not at 6,000 feet.
Yeah. So how did the transition go from you documenting as the purpose behind the art to having it be like a, you know, full-blown business now?
So I came home and it was really serendipitous. I decided, for some reason, I was like, yeah, breweries like feel like a little bit more adult version of like, you know, service industry or whatever, and was applying for breweries. And then Blue Blaze is the brewery that I was working for in Charlotte, is AT themed. And I was like, oh my God, get out. Like, that's too perfect. And applied, and like the interview was funny because they're like, what do you know about craft beer? And I was like, I don't know, I drink it. Like, I like it. And they're like, okay, well, what do you know about like hiking culture? You know, I was like, well, let me tell ya. And so that's how I got that job. And he was really interested in having somebody there to keep the branding, like, keep the community, the outdoor community of Charlotte. Like, the goal is to like have that brewery be the watering hole when you think of like hiking and outdoors in Charlotte. And so got to do a number of different, you know, kind of had a version of free reign with that, where he was like, if, you know, it feels on brand and it gets, you know, hikers and engages with the outdoor community here, like, do it. Let's figure out a way to do it. And so I started a hiking club and like a meetup group, and would have backpacking workshops and stuff like that. He was also like, okay, you have an art background. If you want to do rotating art shows on our walls, which you probably see that here too, like with cafes and breweries and stuff, just like, you know, it's a good opportunity for an artist to get exposure, and then also for the restaurant or whatever it is to have something on their wall that's engaging. And so I was like, cool, yeah, I'll pick some artists. And I picked me first, or not first, but like, you know, a few shows in. And so that was an excuse to sit down and like make nice paintings that go into frames. And those were all based off of the paintings that were in the sketchbook. So the like title of that show was like the Appalachian Trail sketchbook. So replicating those, using the sketchbook as a reference image just as often, if not more, than a photograph from the trail. So that was a cool like way to kind of just polish that. And then I hung it and promoted the hell out of it, because shameless self-promotion is what you have to do, and sold everything in that show. So I was like, oh, I just made $2,000. Like, okay, cool. So you can make money doing this if you paint, you know, pretty mountains that people, you know, things that have stories that people connect with, that they want to hang in their house.
Yeah, that's my question. Is were they drawn to the particular landscapes, or the story that were attached to the landscapes?
It's all across. So sometimes people just buy something because it's pretty. I would say most of the sales happen because somebody recognizes it, you know. And so and I see that now as I do like the, you know, the art markets and stuff. They're like, I was at one in Asheville the other day, and somebody walked by, double take, and stepped back. Is that Franconia Ridge? And I was like, yes. Like, you saw it out of the corner of your eye and you recognized it. Yeah. And, you know, she bought the sticker version of it, not the painting. But, you know, so then you see it and you connect with it, and you're like, oh, I have this story there. Or I hiked there with my mom, and this would make a great present for her. So typically it's a story. Every once in a while somebody's like, oh, that's just pretty. Like, I'll hang that in my house. And then sometimes it's like in that first show that I did at Blue Blaze, it was like, a lot of it was replicating what I had in the sketchbook, which could be really random. And so there was one of my friend like sitting, we were in Maine, and he's like overlooking this beautiful pond, and I like did this drawing of him like sitting there. It was like so like serene, and I showed him, and he was like, yeah, I was just sitting there thinking about cheeseburgers, you know, it looks like I'm pondering life. So I did a thought bubble with a cheeseburger in it. And then I did that as a like more refined painting to have in the show. And like somebody bought it. She's like, I have a room of weird art, and this is going to go so well in there. And I was like, yes, thank you.
How do you get past like the hurdle of imposter syndrome to be able to make it into the plentiful field of shameless self-promotion? Because I feel like with art, that's a really hard barrier to get over.
I think for me, I've like self-identified as an artist for so long. So to say like, you know, to do that is not too hard for me. Like, again, let's go back to the story of me walking around with my sketchbook with the drawing facing out. Like, I just kind of have no shame in that regard. I will say there's some imposter syndrome now as I get into like having it as a business, and like technically I'm an entrepreneur. Is that correct? Like, no, like that doesn't feel right. And so when people ask me, you know, like, for me to say, oh, I'm an artist, like that's easy. When somebody says, what do you do for a living? And I say I'm an artist, like I still choke on that a little bit, which to be fair, that's half my income. You know, the other half is guiding. So that's part of it is I'm like, well, I'm not a full-time artist, so I'm kind of an artist. But, you know, then you get commissioned by the ATC to do a mural, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm fucking killing it.
Yeah, which is awesome. We have questions here about that. But what was the process for that? Where is the mural, and what was the what landscape were you painting for the mural?
Schmoozen was the process for that. I had an invitation to go up to Damascus for like just a vendor fair thing. The person who reached out was like, it would be cool to have some trail art here. And couldn't go to the initial one, so I ended up going to the one in December, which had occurred to me that like that probably wouldn't be the most successful to be in Damascus in December, but I went anyways. And it, you know, it was fine. Like I didn't lose money on the show, but I didn't make a whole lot because Damascusians, the locals, they don't care about the AT that much, you know, and you know, so there's not hikers in Damascus in the winter, turns out. So it just wasn't like my ideal audience. But while I was there, I was actually trying to get into trail days as a vendor, but I was just like, I'm just gonna schmooze around Damascus, and they just built the trail center there. And so the lady who was hosting the event was like, oh, you know, I'll introduce you to the people who are in charge over there. And so I just kind of got on a few people's radars, and then just shameless self-promotion. So I reached out to them prior to trail days and was like, hi, like I will be there. Where can I hang my art? How can I hang my art? Can I use that space that you have? Like what can I do to get it in front of people? And she's like, well, we don't really have a place to hang art, but we're looking for a mural artist. Would you want to do that? And I'm like, yep, okay, that's it. We're in. And so went up. It's at the ATC's new trail center, which is built like at the end of last year. And so they have their building, and then like the front yard is a bit of a garden. There's a sign there, and then there's a garage building that used to be like a Damascus Motor Company or something that is their like workshop for trail maintenance, instruction, and where they keep all the trail maintenance tools and stuff. And so you see it when you're walking down Main Street. People stop and turn and take the picture of the ATC sign, because that's where the sign is. It's not in their building. And then they have this garden of native flowers and stuff behind it. And then there was this big gray wall. So that's why they wanted one there. The scene is of Grayson Highlands with rhododendrons in full bloom, which if you ever are... Did you guys hike Grayson Highlands when you went for trail days this year?
No.
Okay.
We didn't do any hiking this year.
If you can... Well, I guess it's probably more like early June. It is incredible up there, which is... the painting that I gave you guys too. The mountain laurel, flame azalea, rhododendron, all of the above, like just, it felt like a Barbie magic wonderland, just like pink clouds everywhere. I took my mom to see the ponies, and we caught the rhododendrons as well, and it was incredible. So I was like recreating that scene, and yeah, you can see it just walking down the trail down Main Street. And I got to do it working up to trail days. So as people start trickling into town for the festival, a lot of people like were able to watch me and like come up and engage with me, so that was super cool as well.
That's awesome.
Go
ahead.
Was that your first mural?
Yeah, technically, yeah. They're just like, you want to do this? I was like, shh, don't tell them.
Did they ask if you've done a mural before? No. Is it challenging? How different is it compared to like a canvas?
A little bit of a learning curve, because it's like an acrylic paint rather than watercolor, so you just kind of layer your colors a little bit differently. Working large scale was easier, like switching to that large of scale. This is 26 by 9 feet. Was easier than I expected it to be. It just took way longer. And I talked to one of my friends who does murals, Moss, and she was like, yeah, just give yourself more time than you need. So I was like, I think I need 4 days, so I'll give myself 6, and I needed 10. And luckily found there was a thru-hiker that came into town early for the festival just to take some time off for an injury, and just started talking to them randomly in a cafe. Turns out they had art background and were looking for odd jobs to make a little cash while waiting. And I was like, low-key interviewing them as I was like, do you have painting experience?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a sketchbook? Can I look at it?
What do you think of Picasso?
yeah. What do you think of? Yeah. And so I got to look through some of their work, and I was like, I can pay you a little bit of cash. Like, if you will come help me with this mural for a few days. So they helped me for 3 pretty hearty full 10 to 12 hour days with painting. And that really saved, I mean, it would have been fine. I just would have stayed after the festival. But at that point I was in Damascus for 11 days sleeping in my van. So I was ready to be home.
But also what a sweet side gig for a thru-hiker.
I think they enjoyed it. Yeah. I wish I could have paid them more, but I didn't work that into the budget. But I was up front, so and they were happy to do something to compensate, the expense of taking that many zeros.
How challenging is it working the detail? Because I see a door that you painted on this wall. Are you painting the underside of the crooks of the door? How does that work?
Yeah, I did pretty much. I taped off the the important functional parts of the door, so the seams and stuff. A little tricky. And then the material of the door, it's a different surface than the cinder block, so the paint responded differently. But I think it was pretty. Yeah,
it looks
easy.
Great. I just imagine with the different dimensions.
There are 2 pipes that come off the wall that are where the wires run through, and I turned those into trekking poles propped up against the tree. So that was a fun way to just incorporate
I see that
the
now.
elements that are there.
That's cool.
Into something.
Yeah. So 10 days. Is this 10 8-hour days? Or?
No, 10 12-hour days.
Damn.
Wake up at 6 a.m. So they let me van camp right in the parking lot there, and I would just wake up at 6 and just roll out of the van, run down to the porta potty, and then just I was working from sun up to sundown on it.
Is this the art piece that has consumed the most amount of your time?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, probably.
Well, what's number 2 on that list?
So I started working a little bit more larger scale at home. So some 24 by 36 inch painting. So the Grayson Highlands painting. So I came home from that mural and was like, well, I don't have a Grayson Highlands painting in my portfolio outside of this, and really want a paper painting or the panel painting of that. So painted the almost exact same scene again. I was like, I am crazy. I'm already cross-eyed from this much rhododendron. Let's just do it again. So that one coming back was a 24 by 36 inch panel. So probably Grayson Highlands again.
And I've learned this through running a backpacking related store, that the AT is by far and away the most popular thing that we do. We have a disproportionate amount of AT related stuff because that's what people want. Mm-hmm. Have you found that to be the case with your art as well?
Absolutely. You put a white blaze on it, people will buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get so excited.
What's your most popular piece of art?
The Franconia Ridge painting or the Roan Highlands painting. I think people recognize those. There is a painting of a white post, or a post with a white blaze on it. That's on Max Patch, but it's kind of not the focus of the painting is the blaze. So that one gets a little bit more attention because it's, it could be anywhere. Yeah, probably those ones.
And what's the thing that you are putting in the mail most often? I imagine stickers because of the price point.
Yeah.
Is that also the best business element of the business for you? Stickers versus...
Yeah, no. So I definitely probably sell more stickers, but my profit on a sticker is $1. Right. So, I could sell less prints, but my profit on a print is much higher. So my, what's the predominant form of income? I actually don't know. Somebody at JPD asked me that a while ago, and I was like, I bad business owner. I don't have a business degree. Full disclosure. I don't know. I just keep doing stuff, and maybe it makes me money, maybe it doesn't. But I just do kind of what I want to do.
Yeah. No, I love your art. We have a very prominently. Can I reach this without breaking everything?
There you go. Yeah.
Very prominently displayed on our podcast case or podcast recording.
Yeah,
case
you
here.
had given me that sticker, not that exact sticker, but that same sticker when we were at, I think it was Trail Days a few years ago, and I put it in my car because I had driven. And I haven't taken it out of my car yet because I have like sticker commitment issues. But it's been on the side of my car door for so long that now I'm like, I can't move it because that's where it belongs, is like in that little spot. And every time I open my door, I see the Rhone Highlands. And I'm like, this is kind of like a trashy, nice way to keep this because now I see it all the time. And I haven't stuck it to anything and it's in a low effort space.
There you go. Yeah. That's why I started doing magnets for sticker commitment issues and smaller ones. Like that's been, everything's just a learning curve. I ordered a gabillion of that sticker and then the feedback I get on it is it's too big.
Yeah.
And so I just have, 200 of a 5-inch sticker that nobody wants.
How do you decide what to turn into a sticker? Like, because you got so much artwork. I'm just scrolling through your website as we chat, but you have so much on here and so much of it is like really good. So how do you pick?
So locations that I think, people know well enough. So sometimes I paint a location, that's just like off, the Blue Ridge Parkway or something, but it's not like it's pretty. Again, that's going to be somebody buys the painting just because it's a pretty mountainscape. But when you have something like Franconia Ridge or Rhone Highlands, where it's like somebody goes and has an experience and you kind of want that as like a, put this sticker on my car, I hiked that. So locations that I think people like identify with or have been to that I know to be popular. And then, there's some like I'm going down for the Pinhoti Fest in Alabama in like a month and a half or something like that. And so it's like, okay, this is going to be all things Pinhoti. So we're going to do Pinhoti stickers for this. Or, if I feel like the event merits, something kind of more specific. I did called it a hiker trash series for Trail Days. So it's really kind of only appeals to through hikers, but like the jargon and puns or whatever. But I was at Trail Days, so that I wouldn't really have a market for that as much back home. Sure. But at Trail Days, everyone will buy that sticker.
Have you prodded around with the Pinhoti Trail Association to see if there's any mural needs?
Yes. I had a conversation this morning. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard because they're expensive. And that's government money most of the time, or grant money, or art councils or something. But there's talk maybe in Sylacauga, however you say it. Maybe. Yeah. Hopefully I can piggyback it off of that while I'm down there. There's 2 like larger murals there's emails about right now, but not official till I get paid.
Yeah. We were wanting to make it happen here, and the issue we ran into is actually having no real ownership over anything that's happening in this building. We sublet this unit, and then everything else on this, once you enter in that door, is owned by another company, and then everything's owned by the bank. So like we have no control over anything.
Yeah, that was something I realized. Like I went into the one in Damascus, like that was my first one. So I was talking to my friend Moss, who does them pretty often. I'm like, okay, what are the questions I need to ask and what do I need to have? And so thankfully she was really helpful with a lot of that. But then at the same time, I like get there and like thankfully it wasn't an issue, but I'm like setting up and the first thing I see is like a hornet fly by and I'm like, okay, so from now on, we're going to have a note on the quote that says, must get rid of all pests that can hurt me. Like, and like must, like X, Y, and Z, like these sort of challenges. It's like, I need to have somewhere to dump the paint water and like clean paint brushes, which is, it's something that you might not think of in the process. So I just have to be like, just I got to clean some brushes. It's going to make a mess. Like it's not a clean process. And if you don't have it, you don't have it.
So Pinhoti Trail, we should probably talk about some other backpacking stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's a backpacking podcast.
Yeah. You have done the Pinhoti Trail.
Yeah.
How was that?
It's a great one. Yeah, it's a cool one. So I really like that, like 300-mile length. Superior Hiking Trail is also 300 miles. I really enjoyed both of those. It's just kind of like just enough to get you into the rhythm and you're resupplying and you get to be hiker trash. But like for me and my lifestyle, just like doesn't interrupt as much. And it seems like a little bit more attainable. It's easier on the body. But yeah, Pinhoti was really cool. Really great trail community around the trail. Like they're so excited to have one. They are like very like there's just like trail angels out the woodwork and like we would go into towns and be like, okay, like they don't know hiker trash here. They're going to think we're homeless. We got to kill them with kindness and, and just like get in there and just, so I remember like going into a restaurant and like, okay, I'm going to leave my pack out here and go and be like, excuse me, sir, like I smell really bad. You can put me on the back porch. I would love to eat at your establishment. And he's like, oh, are you a hiker? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, come on back. Let me introduce you to the, the city councilman. He's here today. And then somebody like bought us lunch in that scenario without us even knowing it. Kim and Nathan at the Pinhoti Outdoor Center, which is down at the southern terminus, have done a really good job of like keeping that trail, the community engaged, and then providing that like through hiker culture that we're a little bit more used to, because they do have a hostel and the shuttles and just like the sort of stuff that you are a little bit more familiar with if you're coming from one of the big trails. So we hiked Nobo, and that was a great like sort of kickoff, staying with them. And that's who hosts the Pinhoti Fest. They did the first one last year, and it's, it's like small, like that's a small trail, and it's, in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, but there was like the people who are there for it are like stoked about that trail. Really pretty trail. I hiked it in the spring. Like the wildflowers were just like incredible. So, I mean, I don't look up when I'm hiking. So like views are probably like they're there, but there's nothing too great to write home about. But since you have to look at your feet the whole time anyways, you might as well do it when there's like a billion flowers at your feet, and really beautiful. 2 or 3 like annoying road walks, but we hiked them. You could skip them.
We get a lot of questions from people that have 3 to 4 weeks to spare for a hike max, and they're looking for something around the range of 200-300 miles. What is a good elevator pitch for why to pick the Pinhoti over a different trail?
I think especially if it's your first through hike, it's a forgiving terrain. And so you still get, you can ease into it and get your trail legs slowly and not just get your butt kicked right out the gate like you do in Georgia. And it's also, you have a lot of good support systems. People know why you're out there for the most part. Like the people we engaged with knew what we were doing. And like I said, the trail angels, like people were just so excited to help, and they don't get the opportunity to help too often because there's not that many people to hike that trail. So when you show up, if you're just like vocal in the Facebook group and like, I'm coming through here, they're like, yes, what can I do? I'll give you a ride. And so you just get a lot of support from everybody. You get a bit of that AT culture because people do it as that like Eastern Divide route where they do Florida Trail to road walk to Pinhoti to Bet McKay to the AT. So there are people out there doing a longer hike. There is just like a smidge of that AT specific culture. Yeah.
What year was this?
Last year, 2022. Yeah, in the spring.
How did it compare to, you mentioned that it's easier to start off with relative to Georgia, but overall, how does the difficulty compare to the AT?
It's much easier. Yeah. So like the last maybe 60 miles, you cross a sign that says welcome to the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it is like that you feel like you're in, I mean you are in Georgia, but you feel like you're in Georgia on the AT. I saw a bear, it snowed, like there was, you're in the mountains. And so that, and it was harder. Like there's significant climbs. There were a lot of actually blowdowns and stuff in that section. But outside of that, there's climbs, like there's definitely climbs enough. And Chiaha State Park was like really rocky, and I was going through there and I was like, Roxylvania, no, it was Roxylvama. So you get challenged, and there was some like water crossings and like, some points where you're camping and you're really in the wilderness. There's not a lot around you, and cool wildlife sightings and stuff like that, but it's approachable. Like, yeah, I would say it's like half hardness of AT Georgia.
Are there good times of year to do it / not do it? Because when I think of Alabama, I think hot and muggy.
Yeah. So this summer, they definitely advise not to. I think the poison ivy gets really bad. The ticks get really bad. It gets really overgrown. Not that many people hike it. So it's just like the people who did give it a shot, who I have heard of trying it in the summer. And that's what like Kim and Nathan will say. They're just like, just don't do it. You're going to hate it, and then you're going to go and talk trash on it, and then nobody will want to come hike it. Spring was great. We did a mid-March start and ended in early April. I think you could go well into May and have a very comfortable hike. I think the fall is quite nice too. I'm sure it's really pretty. The people I know that have been on that trail in the fall talked about how like the leaves being all over the trail, especially when, again, not that many people are hiking on it, so it doesn't get kicked off. So it's just like a little bit tricky footwork. But I'm sure it would be, you'd have that trouble anywhere in the fall. So
since they're similar distances, if you could only do one for the rest of your life between the Pinhoti and the Superior Hiking Trail, which would you choose?
Oh, Kim will be so mad at me. Superior Hiking Trail.
And why?
Oh, it was so pretty. It was just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's, it's different, Minnesota. I don't have any experience up there, and it felt a lot like Maine on the AT. Very wild and very, it was just we hiked it in September. We had peak fall foliage. It is trail the whole time. Unlike the Pinhoti has maybe 50 miles of road walking throughout the whole thing. And there was just like Minnesota nice, I guess, is the alternative to like Southern hospitality, right? And just same thing. Trail angels in every single town. Everybody's trying to help us out. And we needed it. We hiked that trail with the dog. So there was like places we couldn't stay, and people were so eager to just give us a bed and give us somewhere to go, or let us take our dog into the restaurant. They didn't care. And I love the Minnesota accent. It's my favorite accent. I could listen to it all day long.
Yeah. It's like diet Canadian accent.
Yeah. Cheese curds, all of the above. Yeah. It was cool. It was like a little exotic without being too far out of my comfort zone. It feels like East Coast, but it's not, and and that's a mild trail too. Like the elevation there isn't anything too crazy.
How does the difficulty compare to the Pinhoti?
I would say they're probably quite comparable.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I would put them in the same category. Yeah.
And we've talked about this a bit on the trail, but I think it's been a minute. And I know this is a popular one for people in southern Appalachia, the Foothills Trail.
Everybody should hike the Foothills Trail. That's actually the best trail.
Is it?
I'm partial. I grew up in upstate South Carolina, so I grew up hiking Table Rock, which is like the terminus. It's so cool. There's don't quote me on it, but maybe 25 waterfalls along that trail. If not on the trail, then a half a mile off in any direction.
It's a shorter trail. It's
75. Yeah. So it's 1 week. Or I don't know, people hiking in 3 days, good for them. It's so pretty. It's just it's maintained to a T. There is a footbridge over every puddle. And then they have these awesome suspension bridges that they chopper in to go over the bigger river crossings, like the Toxaway and stuff. You hug Lake Jocassee, which is just this pristine, emerald green, beautiful mountain lake. You could, if you fish, I'm sure you could do a lot of fishing along that trail. There's just so much water. The first time I did it, we did it in February of 2020, and we got rained on the whole time, and then got snowed on and slept in a privy. It was great, but it was such a fun experience. And even then, in the middle of winter, I was like, this is so beautiful. And then my husband and I went back and did it with Junie in later that year in the middle of the summer, and I was like, it's going to be way too hot. There's no way this is going to work. And we got thunderstorms every afternoon, which was perfect. Right when it got to the point where it was too hot to manage, the skies would just open up. And then, there's just water everywhere. So you just go swimming all of the time. We would eat our lunch sitting in a waterfall, just with the tortilla on the rock next to you. And I've hiked it twice. I want to do it again in the spring. I would like to do it all 4 seasons. And you just, the last 2 times I did it, you don't even see anybody out there. It's nobody even knows it's there. I think it's some of it's state park. I know it's Oconee State Park and Table Rock State Park. I think a lot of it is actually land. It's not government land. It's not state land. It's Duke Power, who owns the lakes and stuff. And then that's just kind of their big rich company with lots of money, give back to the community sort of effort is maintaining this trail throughout it, and they do a really good job.
What's the hiking / backpacking culture like in South Carolina aside from the Foothills Trail? Because that's the only one that I could even recite.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, North Carolina is so accessible. So even when I was living in South Carolina, it was really easy to just go to all of the hiking that's available in Western North Carolina. That top little corner of South Carolina, there's a lot there. It's really beautiful. The rest of the state, I don't really think so. I went to school in Rock Hill, which is kind of midway down the state, right on the North Carolina line. And, we have Crowder's Mountain State Park. We have a little standalone mountain there, and it's quite crowded. People do love to go hiking there. And Kings Mountain. The state parks in South Carolina are really, really quite pretty. Even getting into the low country. I don't think there's, I'm sure there's just not as much of a hiking culture as you get lower, but I think like where we were, there was, you know, like we would go out pretty often and take friends, and there's several good state parks in that upstate area.
Have you spent any time mentioning Kings Mountain on the Over Mountain Trail?
The Over Mountain Victory Trail?
Yeah.
Just where is the AT? Yeah, that's all I'm familiar with. But well, I guess, yeah, because there's a trail that connects Crowder's Mountain to Kings Mountain. You can do 16 miles, so that's a really good way, like when I'm with friends, like let's get in shape for a thru-hike or whatever, to connect those two state parks. And I think that is part of the Over Mountain. So I've done, that. I think that would be a cool one. I don't really know that much about it, but it would be cool to...
I know it ends at Kings Mountain.
That.
That's why that triggered that
because that's where the battle was.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's a driving route.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was an info board on it at the ATC in Damascus. That I could read
there's one that we read when we went to Over Mountain Shelter.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was mainly driving.
I'm going to throw an odd wrench into the interview here. You know that we're a fan of Fuck, Marry, Kill. You said you've listened to more than one podcast, so you don't have to go too deep into our library to figure that one out. Fuck, Marry, Kill, you can pick anything but 3 beer styles.
Oh, 3 beer styles. I'll kill IPAs over it.
Which is an unpopular opinion.
Yeah, I just like I like IPAs. Like I've grown to like them because you drink enough beer, you like them.
Yeah.
And I'm still like, it's just not the best beer. It just burns your taste buds.
I don't know where the turn happened, because when I was in school, IPAs were like a sliver. Like you could find like Sierra Nevada, I think is technically a pale ale, but there wasn't much in the IPA realm. Now you go to a liquor store and it's 75% of craft beers. I think the pendulum has to swing back at some point to find some kind of equilibrium, but yeah, it's strange what's happened in the craft beer world. Yeah,
I don't know what the science behind that was, but it is. It's like that's what all of the cool beer hipsters drink.
Yeah.
I think because it's such an acquired taste, so it's like once you get there, you're like, I am a beer connoisseur. Because
I'm just gonna pour hot water on pennies and strain it through a cheesecloth.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll kill IPAs over them. They give me hangovers too. I have worse hangovers on a strong IPA.
Sure.
I'll marry wheat. And I'll fuck a sour, like here for a good time every once in a while, but not my go-to. Yeah.
Very good.
A+. Good answer.
I've had some that I've been sitting on too. So fuck, marry, kill, landscape artwork, animal artwork, and people artwork for what you do. Oh boy.
Okay, I'll fuck people artwork. I'm just thinking of like figure drawing classes with the nude model. It's like that's low-hanging fruit on that one. I'll marry landscape and I'll kill animal. Yeah, I don't paint animals very much. I'm doing like the dog portraits tomorrow at the meetup.
We were given our pup paintings here in advance. They were used as examples, and we're very grateful that we don't have to wait in line at the hiker meetup.
So good.
Yeah, but Jenna will definitely take off after Chons and diarrhea in her pants when she sees the Ruby painting.
Yeah, this doesn't need to become a thing. But yeah, Harper will be there tomorrow. I'm going to show her, and she's going to get super excited.
Oh, she'll totally know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't really recognize screens. Like if you FaceTime with her, she doesn't understand that you're there. But she'll probably know it's her.
My parents took Sierra when the twins were born, so for a week they had her and Leo. But apparently during that time, either it was the Westminster Dog Show or like a replay of it was happening, and my mom said that Sierra sat on the couch and watched it for like an hour straight and refused to look away from the screen.
Interesting. See, Harper will watch TV, but if you're on FaceTime and I show her and it's like, she'll just like look like
in every direction except for the phone.
Okay, another fuck, marry, kill. Watercolor, oil painting, acrylic painting.
Marry watercolor because that's just where I'm at. I guess I'll fuck oils. Like they're juicy, and an oil painting is just so like I wish I had the patience to go back to it because it like they're just so rich from a color perspective. They take a long time to dry. But they are just so hard. They are so hard. So I guess I'll kill acrylic. But I do really like acrylic and would probably be more likely to get back into painting acrylic before I would oil.
Cool. I'm satisfied.
Last one, fuck, marry, kill, Pinhoti, Superior Hiking Trail, Mountains to Sea Trail. I know this is kind of redundant with my previous question.
so I'll marry Pinhoti because, I mean, I think it's just because I'm down here. I'm like close-ish, but this will be like my second year going to Pinhoti Fest, and I'm more involved in that community and like set myself up for a lifelong commitment there.
Sure.
And fuck Superior Hiking Trail because it's gorgeous. And then I'll kill Mountains to Sea. I've really enjoyed what I've done to the Mountains to Sea Trail, but like so much of it is road and not like even my friends who have biked it. It's like just a challenge to do, and so. Until more of that trail is established. Like that's why I'm like doing it in sections, because like maybe by the time I'm 50 there'll be a little bit more trail to hike on the eastern section, but the whole western section, I mean, that's hard because those are really my stomping grounds, and now guiding, like those are the areas that I know really well, like Shining Rock Wilderness and some in like Linville Gorge and all of that, and it's really, really phenomenal. It's fun to like get off the AT in North Carolina and like see, like there's so much there. So that western portion is pretty phenomenal, but like the entire trail, we're not there yet. Yeah.
And I do want to talk about the guiding. Before we get to the guiding, we got to talk about the CDT attempt.
Oh yeah.
Because I think you were on the calendar to be in last year.
I reached out.
So what year was the CDT attempt, I guess?
2021.
21. Okay.
Yeah.
2 years ago. Time is hard.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So that was our so I met my husband after the AT, and like right after the AT. So it was really, really like that was my pickup line. And so that was really fresh, and we were like, okay, now I'm broke because I spent all my money on the AT. So work a few years, get a few things under our belt, and then there's going to be some adventure. And we looked at the Te Araroa in New Zealand, and that was kind of the plan for a significant period of time. And then COVID hit, and we're like, oh, thank God we weren't planning a spring hike. We don't leave until October. And like June comes around, and we're like, okay, I don't think we're gonna get to go to New Zealand in October either. That had had the money saved up, and he lost his job like entirely because he works in like large scale events. And then I was kind of at a point where I'd been telling the brewery for a while, like something's going to happen. So anyways, CDT ended up being, my friend who lives here, I think he'll come to the meetup tomorrow. We were visiting Boulder, and Peppermint was just like, CDT 2021. And I was like, hell no, I'll never hike that trail. And then like an hour later, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
It took an hour.
We were talking about the Colorado Trail because Raph is from Colorado. So it's like that would be the trail that he was most attracted to. And then I was like, no, go big or go home, Mexico to Canada, let's go. So we hiked it with Peppermint, and then our friend Taco, who was supposed to do a PCT hike, and things were weird that year with that too. So he decided to do CDT with us. Northbound, late April start, and got through all of New Mexico. Loved New Mexico. Most of it, like some of it was so mind-numbingly boring, but a lot of it was like really, really cool, and I enjoyed the desert a lot more than I thought I would. We crossed into Colorado, which was the whole freaking point of coming over here, and we're in Colorado for a week. We were going through the San Juans, and it wasn't a high snow year, but it was a late snow year, and I've never hiked in the snow like that. I was so far out of my comfort zone. I cried every day. Raph had a great time. Glissading was his favorite thing. Like he just like grinning ear to ear, and I am just like sobbing my eyes out.
Does that make the misery worse when your partner is enjoying it so much and you're just loathing it?
Oh, I was so mad at him. I was like, stop having fun. You can't have fun right now. Like, don't you understand? We're on the verge of death, And so that's the only time we've hiked a lot together, and that's like kind of the only time we really butted heads. But it was pretty, like, it was dicey, and we saw 2 helicopter search and rescue evacs, like at once, like 2 accidents that happened in the same exact spot of trail, completely isolated from each other.
Were these both attempted
through?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Do you want that story? It's
a
little bit of a one. So there's, and I might not get it right, but there was a couple that we had met a few times gets to this traverse, and like the trail kind of goes around like the edge of the bowl of these mountains, so to speak. And we know that, you could also just go down into the valley and then up the other side. And the snow was not like, there were not steps in the snow at this one traverse yet. And so this couple decided to go down the mountain where there wasn't snow rather than, what do you call it? Kick stepping? To break tracks?
Yeah, to kick steps.
Yeah. Rather than to kick steps. So she and her husband decided to go down the super steep slope, but relatively safe because it's not that snowy. just like a pain in the ass. And while she's going down, I guess somebody did try to make the traverse above her and must have kicked a rock, rolled down, hit her leg, broke her femur.
Whoa.
So she hits the SOS button, and at this point we're kind of walking into this valley. We see this like helicopter come in, and we're like, probably just training exercises, right? Like that's just like there's nothing like dangerous ahead, surely, you know. And I'm like just recovering from my most recent panic attack. Nothing dangerous out here. And so as we're walking, we see this this helicopter come in. So they get up to her, they like chop ski up the mountain, and then I gotta decide like which perspective to tell this story from. Okay, so we see the one helicopter come in, and then we see another helicopter come in. And so and then we, you know, walk around and we get to this traverse, and we see, you know, you can see that some people have tried to make it, but a lot of people have tried to go down the hill. And so we're like, okay, like everybody's going down, and we see our friends ahead have decided to go down instead. So we start going down, and then we find a water bottle, and then a cell phone, and then a hat, and then an ice axe, and skid marks. And so we're like, okay, something happened here. And then we get to where she was when she broke her leg, and you see the chop ski marks from. So the paramedics got there. They start chop skiing up the mountain to get to her. When this other guy comes through, we think he actually maybe purposely decided to glissade down when it was not a safe place to glissade, but maybe he fell. We don't know. Slides down the mountain, loses control. That's when all of his shit fell out of his pack. Ran into rocks and went completely unconscious as the paramedics are working their way up to the mountain to save this girl who broke her leg. So they go, hold on, hang tight. We know you've been waiting on us for 2 hours. This is a life-threatening injury. So we're going to go get him, and we're going to get another helicopter to come in to get you and your husband, because we could only fit so many people in. And then we roll in kind of as that helicopter is leaving, and we met one of the paramedics was waiting in the valley because there wasn't enough room for all of them. So they had to take them to the hospital, come back and get him. So we got this story from one of the officials that was there. I might have botched it a little bit, something along those lines. So that happens, and we're like, this is just a shit show. Like, we can't find the route. Like, it's just hard. We decide we're going to go into Pagosa Springs, and then we're going to take the Creed alternative moving forward. And so we get back on trail. We do whatever the 20 miles is from Pagosa Springs to get to the Creed bypass. And we have, like, other friends that are out there, and they're like, no, we're going to keep going through the San Juans. And we're like, what if this is the last time we see them? Like, are they going to be okay? Like, this is so dangerous. And we decide to go down on the Creed bypass, the easier, safer route. And 1 mile into that route, which the whole first mile was all of these blowdowns, my husband's like kind of clambering over this tree. And me over here for the last week has been like, be careful, be careful, be careful. Like the nagging wife that I now am. And I got to say, I told you so, because the tree rolled underneath his, like, while he was walking on it like a balance beam sort of, and it rolled, and he fell, and he broke his arm. And I had my phone out. I was about to take a picture, and I wish I had, because he likes to, his version of the story is really different. He fell 10 feet down the mountain. I was like, no, you just fell like where you're standing. I was like, are you okay? And he's like, no. And I'm like, shit. And so, yeah, so we get our way down to the river, and I just got my wilderness first aid certification for the guiding job and patched him up as best I could. And it was a 15-mile hike to a Forest Service road. Got search and rescue out on a they brought an ATV. They didn't need one. It was a decent enough road. Saw a huge black bear on the evac. Got to Creed, and yeah, and then it was just, you know, this whole shit show trying to figure out how to get to a hospital and get that taken care of. So,
yeah. So did you manage that with InReach or some sort of SAT?
So yeah, I had my InReach, and I was like, should I hit the button? He's like, no, they're just going to send the chopper. And that's when it occurred to me. I'm like, I don't know what happens when you hit the SOS button. Do you know what happens when you hit the SOS button?
You lose a lot of money.
Yeah, that's what I was like. That sounds expensive. So no. No, what they would do, I called Garmin afterwards to confirm. They're like, no, we don't send out a chopper unless it's like a last minute resort. You can't text 911, right? But they would then have your number, your Garmin number, to text you, and you could then explain the situation and establish a plan from there. So that's what I should have done. Instead, I didn't text my parents or his parents because I didn't want to scare anybody. Texted one of my friends and was like, what's in Creed? Like, is that the town to go to? Is that the closest based on where we are? And then looking at Gotha could tell, like, okay, there's this Forest Service road. And then I happened to have one bar of service when we got to the Forest Service road. So that's where I was, I just called on my phone. It took 14 individual calls because the call kept dropping. And then the dispatcher was like, oh, well, actually it directed you to the wrong, like, dispatch unit or whatever. And I'm going to transfer you. I'm like, don't transfer me. Like, it's taking me. I'm just going to hang up, or I'm probably going to drop the call, which is what happened. and we will be here. We will be at these coordinates where I told you we are. And don't expect me to get this whole conversation into another dispatcher. Either you're here, and if you're not, we're going to hike the extra, it was another 12 miles into Creed. And luckily the message did get across. And they sent out somebody who picked us up. So that was fun.
Yeah. So at that moment, I assume you had the inkling that your hike was done.
Yeah, well, no, we came back, and so he's from Boulder, so we came up here to his parents' place, and we're up here for a while, and it was convenient because his insurance was actually still from Colorado, and he has established doctor here, so we were able to kind of navigate that actually more easily than we would have if it was just a regular accident at home. And so we were toying around with our options. We thought at first that the cast was going to have to go over his elbow, and then it didn't, and so then we were like, okay, well, we could keep hiking, but then he couldn't even tie his shoes. So it was like, okay, let's not keep hiking, but we could go home and we could come back and join our friends, or we could just start at Glacier and hike south. And all of that was very much at on the table. Like, we were going to do something. Like, we had the time set aside. We had our dog being taken care of. Like, we were going to make the most of it. But then we got bored and started scrolling through Facebook Market and found a van, and then just spent the rest of our money on the van and went home. So...
Did you do cool van stuff at least?
Yeah. We took a fun road trip home, like a week long through South Dakota and the Badlands, and not through Kansas. And then we took a week putzing up and down the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, and I was like scoping out hikes for guiding. And then we would like hike a little bit in the morning, and we got to bring our dog with us. It was super cute. And then I would paint all afternoon, and then got a whole like body of work out of that. And that was really fun, like painting in plein air, right, in front of the actual scene rather than from a photo in the studio. So it's always good to like, that kind of keeps your skills a little bit more fresh doing that. And then that's the week that he proposed as well. When we were doing
story
that.
time.
Yeah.
Chance
Love a common theme.
Yeah, Chance has chimed in here. Go ahead.
No, that was my chime in. Story time. I want the story.
You want the story? Is
yes,
that the question?
I do. Yes, please. I'll give you the story.
The proposal story?
Yes.
So we just had this week kind of up and down the parkway. When we were holed up in Boulder, like trying to figure out, like we did look at rings, like I knew, it was on the table. He told me later, like he wanted to propose on the CDT, just kind of find some ring like at a pawn shop along the way. So there's like a story there. And then he decided that he was going to do it the day before we finished because he thought I would be expecting it on the last day. So the day before. Was I expecting it? I don't know.
Were you expecting it?
Yeah. You better. And so we came home and we had this week like in our van just going up and down the parkway, and it was so much fun, just like not the demand of like miles and hiking, but still some hiking. And I got to paint, and he got to do his favorite thing, which is sit and do nothing while I painted. And the dog was there and stuff. And so there's this waterfall off the parkway called Douglas Falls, and you take the Mountains to Sea Trail to get to it. So we parked at an overlook. It's like, so I think it's 4 miles down this trail, and this is in August, and it was like super overgrown. There's nettle everywhere. It's like really rocky and steep, and I'm like, I'm not taking clients on this hike. Like, this is like a hard hike, but I loved it. I like hard-ish hikes, and we get down this beautiful waterfall down there, and it's just him and I, and it's this like super hard overgrown trail to get down there. So we like take our clothes off and get under the waterfall and bathe off because it's the middle of the summer, and we're just like we put our clothes back on, and we're sitting there like having a good old time, and then this family shows up like 5 minutes after we put our clothes back on. This family with 2 very young kids just like appears from like the opposite side of where we came from, and I was like, how did you guys get here? And they're like, oh, there's a trailhead a half a mile down that way. I was like, oh, I didn't know that, like we just like went into that, like, oh, we have the place to ourselves. And so then, and this was a little bit of a, like, I was like, because my husband doesn't do like social media and doesn't like take pictures of, like, he'll take pictures of like one, like he has like 10 pictures from the CDT, like that's it. And doesn't like pictures with people in it. He's like, that ruins the landscape. Why would you put the person in there? And so he's like, do you want to see if this couple wants to like take a picture of us? And I'm like, never have you ever. And so there's like a little bit of a red flag there, but he he was like, will you like take a picture of us under the waterfall? And he stayed and talked to the guy for a little bit, and we went under the waterfall. And this is sappy and cute. So when we hike together, we'll write haikus, because they're easy to memorize and you don't have to write them down, and it's just like a game to play while you're hiking. And so we get on the waterfall, and he was like, I wrote you a haiku, and it was,
what was it?
Something, venture partners forever, will you marry me? And then like the last line of the poem is, will you marry me? But he was still standing, but like I didn't necessarily expect him to kneel, you know? So I was like, yes. And he's like, oh, you answered it too soon. And I was like, what? He's like, I didn't ask you yet. And I was like, yeah, but you did, you know? And so then he's like, okay. And he got down on one knee, and the ring was in like a wooden box. He got it off of Etsy, and like it's so humid on the East Coast, and so the wood was like swollen, and he couldn't get the box open. But then like the family that's filming it, you know, so he formally proposes. I say yes, we kiss, and then they send us the, you know, we get the video, and as they're recording it, like when we kiss, the two little boys go, ew, gross, and that's my favorite part.
I like the part where it's a haiku and there's only 3 lines, and the first line is something.
Oh no, there was an actual line.
No,
there.
I know.
I don't remember.
That's the part I like.
Because the second line was cute because it wasn't adventure partners, because it's too many syllables. It was just venture partners forever.
To get to the point.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And let's wrap with chatting a little bit about the guiding for Blue Ridge Hiking Company.
It's awesome.
So yeah, you're working with JPD. Actually, she's not
sold
involved.
It. Yeah. So I got to work with her for the first 2 years, and she's still like around. Like she was at guide training, and I got to do a painting lesson with Charlie, her daughter, earlier this year and stuff. So, but she's off saving the world in new and exciting ways now. But yeah, it's a great job. Like it's so much fun. It's you know, it's different than like I think people expect. It's not necessarily different than I expected. One of my friends guided, like one of my friend Kimberly, who used to live with us, and she lives in Arizona now, but she had some experience guiding and was working for a few different companies, and that's what like kind of sparked the interest for me. I was like, oh, I could do that. And so I had like an idea of what to expect, but a lot of people are like, oh, you get to hike for a living. And it's like, it's not your hike. Like it's your client's hike, but it's cool to change the way that you hike. It's cool to hike slower. It's cool to, you know, see it from their perspective. And, you know, it gave me like, I've really started learning my wildflowers and mushrooms and trees, and not birds yet, but that's like the next chapter. And just kind of like, it's a different lens for experiencing the outdoors. I get to talk a lot. I love to talk. So that's great. And I, you know, they're interested in me and my story and like through hiking and my experiences doing this sort of stuff. So I get to talk about me, which is great. And just like, you know how that is, you finish a hike and you're just like, you see somebody, like you go to REI and you see somebody looking at shoes, and you're like, you really want to go up to them and just tell them everything you know about shoes, but you're like, it's inappropriate, like I didn't ask, you know, but now people are asking, you know, and so it's like, I just kind of get to like overload on them on all of that information that I've acquired, and then really get to familiarize myself with hiking the same things like over and over again, you know. So I get to do like Max Patch to Hot Springs. That's like the main route we guide, and I've done it like a few dozen times at this point, and it's like I know every rock and flower and tree along that trail, and I would prefer to hike other stuff sometimes, you know, but it's still like I get excited to do that route because it's like, oh, it's like an old friend, and I just know every inch of it so well. And you're like, how the Jack in the Pulpit's doing? Are they blooming yet? Like, is the chicken of the woods on this tree yet? Like, can we harvest these mushrooms? And so it's neat to see the exact same space go through all the changes throughout the season, because it's never the same trail.
So maybe you just answered this, but I'm curious, how do you experience a hike differently as a guide versus someone who's just going solo or with a small group?
It's slower, mostly slower. And, you know, just if I'm hiking with friends or if hiking with my husband, it's like I might hike ahead, you might hike ahead. Like, you're still hiking your hike, even if you still kind of have to cater it to your hiking partner to camp. You know, you have to make some compromises, but like for this, it's like 100% like, no, like you are in charge. I will be in the back always. So if I have a group of 7 people, I am with the slowest hiker no matter what. And so it's just really just prioritizing their needs and like understanding what they're after. So if they want it to be a learning experience, you know, you teach them this is how you filter water, now you do it. And then sometimes you can tell that they just don't want to, so you just like, okay, I'll gather all the water, I'll filter all the water, I'll cook all the food. Like, that's fine too if that's not what you're here for, you know. Like, this is hard enough as it is, you've never done this before. If it makes it easier for me to get your water every single time, like, I'm happy to do that for you. So just it's different every single time based on the client. Yeah.
And if somebody listening to this wanted, like, they really enjoyed your interview and they wanted to have you as their guide, do they get to request particular guides or sign up for different trips where, like, the hosts are known? How does that work?
Yeah. So we kind of do two different styles of trips. Well, we have day hikes too, but I live in Charlotte and the company's based out of Asheville, so I don't make the commute up for those. So for backpacking trips, there's two different styles. There's group trips, which is like they're all online. They're a set itinerary and like normally like theme or style. So I do like a watercolor specific hike where there's also like watercolor lessons. You get a sketchbook and paints and stuff for the duration of the hike.
Is there wine also?
No, we're not supposed to do alcohol, so that'd be nice. But there's waterfalls and pretty views. And what's better, really? Wine? Maybe wine. But yeah, so there's like, backpacking ages 16 older. There's women specific. There are like wildflower oriented or waterfall oriented. And the group trips, you and your friends sign up, but you're there with other people and other strangers. And those are the guide is generally predetermined and that's on there. It'll tell you that. And then for private trips, you pick your dates. You give an idea of what you're after. We help you pick an itinerary, cater to you, and you can pick your guide if you want to. So yes, you can call up and be like, I want Heidi specifically on these days. Yeah.
Well, I hope you get a few of those from this interview.
Yeah,
I'd love that.
You leaned in like you were going to ask one.
Well, because this leads perfectly into the guided watercolor trips that you're going to be leading. Because those will obviously be with you.
Yep.
As their watercolor trips.
I do 2 a year. So I do one in the spring and one in the fall. The one coming up is in October. I can look up the dates. It's Indigenous Peoples Day weekend, because I was hoping that some people would have an extra day off for that. September, October 7th, 8th, and 9th, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And it's the best hike we offer because we don't hike hardly at all. It's great. So we do like a mile and a half out. We set up camp. We provide all of the gear and stuff. So first time backpacking, I show you how to set up the tent and do all of that. And then we hike off like hardly any distance at all to a waterfall and paint the waterfall. And that's day one. And then day two, we leave camp set up because we're going to come back there. So you don't even have to hike with weight the second day. And it's like maybe 5 miles. And we hike up to a viewpoint and you get this view of Looking Glass Rock. And it's a really great place. You could sit there and paint for an hour or two, hike back. And then optional, if you want to stay at camp, you can. And then if you want to hike another mile out to another waterfall, we can do that and come back. And then the last day is like maybe a 4-mile hike back to the car on the rest of the loop. So it's a super cool itinerary, and just you get waterfalls and views like in the same hike, which isn't always the case. And yeah, you don't really even have to hike that much. It's an accessible hike, yeah. And you don't have to have painting experience. And some people come out just because the mileage is more accessible, and they don't really care about the painting at all. And then some people like have a lot of art experience, and some people have none. So it doesn't matter. I try to focus it on like, what is the benefit of being present in nature, the mindfulness component of it, the nature journaling component of it. Like, yes, I'm happy to give you as much advice as I can, but like there's 6 of you, you're all sitting on different rocks and there's a roaring waterfall. It's not going to be a step-by-step instruction the way it would be at a paint and sip studio. But, like what did you gain from this experience? What did you notice about the waterfall that you wouldn't if you would come down here, took a picture, looked at it for 5 minutes and left? Like, and what are you noticing about like how the lighting is changing, and like how does your experience change by sitting in the spot for an hour and paying attention to the visual details of it, like scrutinizing them?
Did you get hired with leading one of these trips in mind, or you got hired and then you're like, hey, I have this idea? Because it sounds not too dissimilar to when you got hired by Blue Blaze. They wanted to do like this art feature, and then you inserted yourself. I'm curious to know the process for how this worked.
Yeah, it was great. So the first year, I applied for the position, and then after the application went in and I got the first interview is when we formally made the decision to hike the CDT. So I went to the interview and I was like, please don't hate me. Like, I'm not going to be here for the majority of the season, but I still wanted to come and like, maybe we can just consider this an interview for next year, because I'll be interested in this next year. And they were just like, well, why don't you just like, we can hire you on as a guest guide. We have a few guides that like kind of, they have something special or specific to bring to the table and aren't as, you know, regularly booked. But it was just going to be one watercolor hike in the spring. And then it worked out great because we came home so much earlier and spent all of our money on a van. So then I was able to, like, for the fall, have like work basically as a full, like a regular guide.
Do you have anything else you want to touch on?
No, I guess my final question would just be, do you have any advice or input or just like words of wisdom to someone else who like is in the artsy world and doesn't know how to find a way to make it sustainable, like tips for them in getting started?
Yeah, I guess ask me in a few years when I make a little bit more money. Just like not, like, it's been a ease into it sort of process. And so I was like working at the brewery. I was just like taking on commissions and doing stuff on the side, like as I could on my schedule, and not being dependent on that as my full income. And then for me, the way that I've tried to do it involved a pretty big like upfront cost of stocking my inventory, because I sell, you know, prints and posters and tote bags and basically like print my art on functional things because it's easier for a lot of people to buy and have a variety of price points. But that was expensive for me to start with. And so that was the like the other part of the CDT money. Basically, it was just like, okay, we'll start the business now, like a little bit more officially, but then even still like have guiding. And so this past winter was the first winter that I didn't go back to the brewery and only did art. And it was rough. Like that was hard. And especially winter. And we went to Guatemala for a month, so that was part of it too. But like, there's cool hiking in Guatemala. I didn't bring that up earlier. That's a different conversation. It's fun. But we spent a month in Guatemala, and January and February, March is really slow for art, for like selling stuff anyways, because people come off of spending all their money for the holidays. So yeah, and you know, it helps that I'm married, you know, and there's a husband and he owns the house, and I'm not going to get kicked out, you know. So like, still contribute and stuff, but it's not just as much of this. Like, I think if I was like single trying to do this, like, it would be a lot harder. There'd be a lot more at risk. But, you know, once things picked back up for me in April, like, it's been a good trajectory. And so I'm just like kind of hoping that each year is better than the last, and just like easing into it more a little bit.
All right, give us your top hike in Guatemala.
So we did the El Mirador track, which is out to a Maya ruin, like a Maya city, that you can only access by helicopter or walking. And so it was a guided trip. We did it with a group, and it was 2 days out, 1 full day exploring the ruins, and then 2 days back. So it was a 5-day trip. But we had mules carrying all of our stuff, and we had like cooks in the trip, or in the group, that like we would get to these kind of like permanent camps that were set up, and they would have like watermelons cut up, like ready for us to eat. And it was a really, really cool experience. It was, you know, it's hard as a guide, as somebody who gets paid to guide, to hire a guide. But that was at the end of our month-long trip, and just kind of realized that was the name of the game there. And it's like, I don't know the flora and fauna there. I don't know what's venomous or poisonous, or how to navigate the trails, or speak the language. And so I was definitely like not even for a second considering not hiring a guide. And it was a really great experience. Our guide, and he didn't speak any English, but it was so much fun. Like, we learned a little bit of Spanish while we were there, and I was like, I'm going to make it my point to talk to him for an hour. And like, it was great. Like, we were able to have a whole conversation and make each other laugh. And we might go back. We might go back next year and kind of keep trying to make like Central America a thing for us.
Sounds like a good place to go in the winter.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and January is so slow for both of us, so we can like swing that as a time off, and so that's like more realistic.
What is did you say he was a doctor?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Where did you get that from?
Did I just make that up?
I
yeah,
think
you
so.
did. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't wait for this to be nothing like Doctor. What is
he
it?
works for a production company. He does like AV for large scale events for like corporate conventions and stuff like that. So they just happen to have a slow season with his.
So very similar to being a doctor then.
Super close. Yeah.
Well, Heidi, this has been awesome. Your artwork is incredible. Everyone listening should go check it out. Let everyone know where to follow you on Instagram, your website, all the good stuff.
I am Sketching Summits, all one word, on Instagram, on TikTok. Like I post there, never, but it's there. And then facebook.com/Sketching Summits. And then my website is sketchingsummits.com, which brings you to the place where I sell things, and you can give me your money and I will give you art.
And worth mentioning, you do offer commissions, custom paintings.
Yeah.
But if you want one of these sweet dog photos, you have to get in your time machine and come to the meetup that's going to be before this episode comes out. Or are you going will this be like a reoccurring thing that happens at Blue Blaze Brewing?
Yeah, so I started doing it because Blue Blaze has a First Furs Day event. So that's when I started doing it. And when I have more time, like when things slow down in the winter, I might start taking pet portraits, but I try to like keep my commissions a little bit more geared towards the body of work that I do, which is mountains and hiking related. But they've been super popular, so who's to say? But yeah, for the time being, I'm only doing them at the live events.
Sweet.
Yeah. So come to Charlotte.
Yeah, definitely check out Sketches, website, Instagram, all the good stuff. Your stuff is amazing. We're big fans. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad the timing worked out, that you were in town and we were able to make this happen in person.
This was a goal for me for many years. So now I can, I can retire basically. Like we're good.
Well, sorry to disappoint. But yeah, thank you for making it on Backpacker Radio.
Yeah, thank you.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. I love this piece. This is, I think, the first feature piece of our new managing editor, makeshift managing editor. He's filling in for Kelly for right now. He's obviously done tons of pieces for us in the past, but as the managing editor, his first assignment was 11 Reasons the Florida Trail is Awesome.
I read this today.
Did you?
Yeah.
This is by Owen, who will be on the podcast here, hopefully not in the too distant future. I'm going to feature 3 of his 11 reasons here. Number 3 is cool wildlife. American alligators hog all the attention, but the state is home to other creatures that are rare or impossible to see on other trails. Spice, his hiking partner, and I were mostly delighted to see otters, hogs, armadillos, tons of crazy birds, and a myriad of snake varieties.
Sorry, that wasn't planned.
We did miss some of the big ones like manatees, panthers, and bear. If you hike through Florida, chances are you'll see an animal that you haven't before. Reason number 6 that he cites is that it's really flat. Elevation in Florida is measured in inches rather than feet. That's awesome if you're not a fan of sweating up and crunching down mountains and knobs. In fact, there isn't a single pass on the Florida Trail. Of course, the Florida Trail isn't actually completely flat, but it is by far the closest any national scenic trail will ever come to being a pool table. If your knees ache at just the thought of the Appalachians, Rockies, Sierra, the Florida Trail might be for you. And reason number 11 is that it's winter friendly. There are a few trails as suited to winter hiking as the Florida Trail. While the state does see some cold weather, it is rare and short-lived. Usually days are warm and pleasant while nights are cool. A typical 3-season gear setup should be just fine. So yeah, it's not the perfect trail, but for hikers willing to get weird, the FT is a great option for getting on trail when it isn't feasible to hike elsewhere. The trail is in season from November through March to avoid sweltering temps. And the relatively short completion time, 5 to 12 weeks, means that start dates are flexible. That said, most Nobos start in early January, with Sobos heading out a little bit later. What a way to kick off a new year. And that's all we're going to feature. If you guys want even more incentive to go hike the Florida Trail, I'm not sure I'm completely sold, but I think he got me closer than potentially some of our past guests. Head to the link in the show notes. Okay. We've pushed question of the day to the segment portion. Today's question of the day is, what's something that you're good at but don't enjoy doing? This is your entry.
Is it?
I know it's not mine because I'll start with my answer. And I thought long and hard about this, and there's not one thing. If I'm good at something, I like doing it.
Oh, come on.
That's true.
Such a guy answer.
It's true. I legitimately went through anything I could think about doing, and if I'm good at it, I like it. I like it because I'm good at it. It's not cause and effect.
My eyes are in the back of my head at this.
Okay.
You enjoy everything that you have a skill at.
Maybe that's because of a lack of things that I'm good at, but if I just like being good at things, so if I'm good at it, I like it because of that.
Must be nice being Zach Davis.
Are there a plethora of things that you're good at that you don't enjoy doing?
Yeah.
Such as?
Okay, the one I thought of is like meticulous tasks or like repetitive tasks or like things that need done with like efficiency. For example, I racked my brain for a good example too. When I was in summer vacation from whatever break between grade and grade, I think it was like 8th grade to 9th grade maybe, my mom worked at a library at a school, and they wanted to catalog all the books in the library. Obviously there's no one to do that, so she paid me $20 a day to go into the school with her over the summer, Monday through Friday. It was like start at 8 or 9 a.m., finish at 3, and just like she would crack the whip too. You couldn't, like, I couldn't touch a phone, I couldn't look up if I wasn't doing it. She'd be on my case about it. Just logging ISBNs, like titles, author names, publishing dates, all this stuff to catalog it in the system. And I was efficient as fuck. Like, I got through the whole library. This is the cheapest labor you could have ever gotten, and I was very good at it. Do not enjoy it. But if you were to stick me in some sort of like meticulous, do this task over and over type thing, I think the hyper focus I can get makes it like I'm deadly efficient.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It's not fun. But I do really well.
Is that you being good at it or working hard at it?
No, I'm good at it because the errors are low, right? Like if I was making typos or mistakes or things like that, it wouldn't have worked. My errors are low. I am efficient time-wise. I work quickly, and I like can just zone in and not come out of the zone for a while.
Yeah.
But I think my holdup with it is any job that is that, they just wouldn't pay enough for me to find it worthwhile.
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
It's just not that interesting to do.
All of the examples under that umbrella feel effort-based to me, which is kind of where this breaks down for me, because in order for me to give a lot of effort, I have to enjoy it.
See, but for me, it's not effort because I zone out. And so it just like you zone back in and 4 hours have passed. But it's more like, is that a fun way to spend 4 hours? Probably not.
Yeah. I'm surprised that you hate doing your taxes then, because that sounds exactly like that.
I don't like things I don't understand.
Okay.
And there's things about taxes I don't understand.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room for error there. Like, I like knowing exactly how something works so that I know how to not fuck it up.
Yeah.
Taxes, there's too many ways that you could mess it up.
Okay. Yeah. I still, even with you giving that example, I don't have a single thing that I'm good at that I don't enjoy.
What
Something
about
in the dad world, surely. Like, killing it at changing diapers, and that's not your favorite?
The thing is, I haven't compared my diaper changing ability to others, so
well, you're doing it. Like,
I'm doing it. No one's died in the process of me changing diapers.
So it must be okay.
Yeah. There are things that I can do that I don't enjoy, but I can't definitively say that I'm good at any of the things that I don't enjoy.
Okay.
Not a single thing.
Yeah, that's to live in Zach's world. What a place that must be.
To the voicemail segment, we have a couple new ones. This wasn't included in the show notes because they didn't get the notifications, but I thought this was a fun one.
Yo, what's up, Badger and Chance? Real big fan of the podcast. You guys kill it. You guys are really funny, and you guys have really cool guests, and everyone's really cool. And yeah, you guys are cool, and this is fun. It's cool to talk to you guys, kind of in a sort of way. All right, thanks. My name's Justin. Bye.
Hey, Justin, how's it going?
Hi.
Now we're talking. Now it's a conversation. Before it was a monologue, but now
Yes.
we're having a dialogue. And
Was this voicemail received at approximately 4:20 p.m.?
We have one more.
Winona, Minnesota, Winona, Minnesota, Winona, Minnesota, Winona, Minnesota, Winona, Minnesota.
Okay. Talk about Winona, Minnesota. They've got this bakery there called like Blodo's or something that I stopped at that my friend wouldn't stop hyping forever because she's from there. The cookies there suck. The cookies were awful. She was like, you got to get a smiley face cookie. It's what they're known for. Yada, yada, yada. This person's going to be so triggered by this. I guarantee it. Worst cookie ever. I have a photo of me sitting on the river holding this smiley face cookie, frowning. I threw it out. So
That's a bad cookie.
Winona, Minnesota. There you go. There's my take.
Yeah. That was actually a callback to our Enlighten Equipment ad.
Do we say Winona, Minnesota over and over and
In
over?
the ad read, I say Winona, Minnesota 5 times or something.
Say
Yada yada
Winona,
yada.
Minnesota.
Winona, Minnesota. Say that 5 times fast. So
I
someone-
listen to our episodes.
Yeah, clearly.
That's the only thing I can think about. I took a massive detour on a road trip to go through Winona, Minnesota for this cookie place because I'm a fat kid and give a fat kid a bad cookie.
Yeah. I have blank thing of the week. Do you have an entry?
Threw up on myself of the week.
Okay.
I guess this could be like, well, this maybe would it be a gross or not gross. It would have been gross either way, but I get really bad acid reflux, where if I don't like strategically pair basic foods with my acidic foods, my tummy turns. And Wednesday, I moved out of my apartment. We're not quite moved into the new place yet. So I'm working from Garrett's, and there's no place for me to work because there's like not furniture in other rooms. So I'm working from his bed as like my office, and he's working from his desk. And I was just like not feeling well because I had acid reflux from the night before. And so I was like, I'm going to throw up. And he's like, you can throw up anywhere you want, just don't throw up on my bed. And I was like, cool. This is still just it being like me being dramatic and not a real thing. He goes downstairs because he has lunch, and I just laid down because I was tired. It was my lunch break, and it jolted me up. Like, you know, when you have to, like, you get that, like, I don't know how to describe this. There's a feeling that comes up the back of your throat. It's like
Spicy.
It's like if you can smell like a far off bakery. It's like a hint of something. It's like a feeling that you get, a little tiny hint of it. That's, I'm gonna absolutely puke in a second. I don't know what it is, but you know every time when you get it, puke's coming. And so I sit up really quick, and I didn't even have time to get off the bed because I just vomited. But in my head is him saying, you could puke anywhere you want, just don't puke on my bed. So I covered my mouth with my hand and like held it in. But then I'm like gagging from holding puke in my mouth, and so three more times it just projectiling into my hands, like blocking it in, not letting any air out. So now I'm kind of choking on it, and it keeps coming up. And you know when you like inflate your cheeks so much that you can't inflate them anymore? It's that, but puke. And I'm running to the bathroom. It ends up spraying out the sides of my hands as I'm entering the bathroom.
I'm close to puking thinking about this.
It got everywhere. I cleaned the bathroom for a bit, and I was drinking blue Gatorade to make myself feel better. So it was neon blue.
Throwing up like an avatar.
So gross or not gross, for the sake of the bed and keeping people happy, forcing it to stay into your mouth.
No, that's gross for sure. That's just gross. You didn't have to.
So that was mine.
Yeah, that's a good throw up of the week.
Yeah, that was Wednesday.
I should have started with mine because it's more of an hors d'oeuvre compared to yours. But I have a stupid thing of the week, which actually happened on the way here. But I took Leo with me to go to the grocery store recently. He loves those little like red barbell cheeses. You know what I'm talking about?
Bluebell.
Bluebell?
Barbell.
Babybel. That's the one. Babybel cheeses. So it's a plastic wrapping and then like the wax coating around it. So on the way home, he was begging for them. So I gave him 2 on the way home. Just threw the trash in like the cup holder in the center console. And then because I had to go deal with him and the groceries, I didn't think to clean out my car. Fast forward through some very hot summer days, and the wax packaging just absolutely melted in the car. And now I've got like liquid wax in the center console of my vehicle. And I'm learning that it's really difficult to clean. I even tried to clean it when it had cooled down a bit, like it wasn't still molten wax. And it's never going to come out.
Yeah.
So I have like a makeshift candle in the center console of my car right now.
Can you like light a match to it and melt it and then dab it with like a paper towel?
I don't know how risky I'm feeling if trying to clean this up with fire is the appropriate way to go about it.
Okay, don't
Maybe.
take my advice.
Yeah. I mean, that would melt the wax, but it might also melt the plastic that's underneath it.
It gives and takes.
Yeah, so I guess the lesser of 2 evils, find it out. Triple Crown of today's theme is hiking things you just don't get. I think this is a callback to a previous Triple Crown we did. This is just things we didn't get, and this is a hiking specific one. This isn't my entry, but I'm prepared if
It's
you
not
are.
mine. I can, yeah, sure. I could do stuff.
Okay. And
I'm in.
you're okay.
Can I
Good.
play?
Yes,
You can play.
absolutely. As the guest, you get to choose if you want to go first, last, or second.
I'll go last.
Okay. I'll go first then, just to keep the
Yeah, you go
direction
first.
simple. You guys better not take any of mine because I only have 3. My first hiking thing that I just don't get is, and I want to get it, but I don't, is winter hiking.
Mm.
Yeah.
Some like short snowshoeing day hikes I can get on board with, like 3 miles tops. I've done a handful of them, but like especially the winter backpacking or anything longer than that, I'm so exhausted after a few miles and frankly just kind of bored. That's about my upper limit for winter hiking.
It's the long nights that get me for winter. Like,
Yeah.
you get into your tent, and this is in, North Carolina, you get into your tent at 6 p.m., and you're there until 7 a.m.
Yeah.
in one position.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I could probably endure the cold if it wasn't for, like, just sitting there for...
Yeah.
Yeah, my
You better have a
knees-
lot of whiskey.
Yeah.
My knees and my butt get too cold. Like even in a quilt, that's the knees and the butt are the 2 parts that get cold. no
Cold
matter what.
knees is still never not funny to me.
It's so uncomfortable.
I don't think I've ever experienced cold knees in my life.
It's really it takes you by surprise.
Yeah, maybe that's because my knees are so fucked that I just don't have feeling there.
Yeah, maybe. Or
cold would be
maybe
nice.
it's because
It's just
you're
like an
good at
icing.
everything
Yeah.
and love everything.
I love the warmth of my knees.
Yeah.
I was even trying to
Relish in
rack
it.
my brain on like, I'm good at cleaning the kitchen, but that's not even a thing. That's all these things that I can think of.
No, that is a thing. You could be good at cleaning the kitchen and not like it. That's
No.
absolutely something you can use there. Or what, do you like it
good
too?
I'm good at cleaning the kitchen because I put effort into it. It's not because like I was given some, like if I put a gun to somebody's head and said, you better clean the kitchen better than anyone's ever cleaned a kitchen, they're going to do a good job. It's just effort based. It's not like a
No, that's
God-given
fear-based. You're pointing a gun to their head.
Well, yeah, the fear is what's inciting the effort.
so
But
that's not fun.
the point is, I'm good at cleaning the kitchen because I put effort into it, not
Because
because
Jenna's holding a
not
gun to
because
your
like
head.
God struck me with this ability to spray the counter better than other people.
You're good at ad reads. Do you like those?
I like making money. I like this being a profitable thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not going to win this one. Okay. I've said this before. Things I just don't get. Like the perfect pitch when it comes to a tent. I'll never care. And there's people that meticulously care. Not to say it's a bad thing. I just can't figure out why you care. I don't get it.
Did you have a dry year on the AT?
Okay, here's the thing. I've had puddles of water at the feet of my tent, and I just move myself further up the tent. Like I don't know why, I just don't care. I've had my tent drip water through onto me while I sleep, and I'll just position myself a different way or bury my head a little bit. I just don't care.
I will join Heidi here in saying the thing that I get off on having a nice taut tent is the flapping. The less
Oh, yeah.
slack there is, the less noise you're going to get on a windy night.
But Heidi's talking about necessity. If it's really, really wet, you're making the perfect pitch so you don't get wet, right? So your tent holds up. I'm talking about the people on like a bluebird day that are walking around their tent doing laps, just like wiggling a stake, like poking it somewhere, just like inspecting it.
Yeah.
Because it looks good to look good.
I can see both sides of this because on the one hand, you're talking about Jabba, his like military background, like you must fold your clothes and do everything in a particular order and you must be up at 6, whatever. That's how he is. But by the same token, if it's a bluebird day, you don't know when the weather's going to turn, especially if you don't have access to like a very predictable forecast.
I'm talking about doing this for pleasure. I just don't get it.
Okay.
Oh, me.
Yeah, you get 2.
Cold soaking.
Oh, I don't
Shit.
get it either. Yeah, fuck you.
I don't
go
like,
back.
I'm and I'm not too much of a, like, what are you, gram weenie or whatever. But like, I feel like I would just end up packing that much more food that is heavier than the stove would have been, you know. And those 4-ounce canisters of fuel are just, it's just not that much. And a warm meal is just such a game changer.
The closest I've been to shitting myself on trail was after cold soaking.
Yeah.
Spraying.
It's just, you know, I did it once on the Art Loeb Trail, and it was like a short, like a 30-mile trail in North Carolina, and it's like I had to stop, and because it was a mountain house meal, I had to stop halfway through like this bitch of a climb just to put water in my like mountain house lasagna so that it would then like soak for the next hour or so it wouldn't be crunchy by the time I got to the top. And I'm like, I don't want to stop in the middle of the climb or like think about this before I get to camp. And I'm just not convinced it's that like it's worth what it's saving you in weight at all.
Yeah. That's a unfortunately too good of an entry because you took mine. Okay. I'm withdrawing my invitation for you to join because now
I'm going to take my second one anyways. Night hiking.
Okay.
I don't know. What? There's bugs everywhere if it's in the summer. It's too cold if it's in the winter. You can't see. Like, isn't the point to, like, see what you're around? And it's so scary.
I'll throw in a swerve there. I go both ways for this. But have you night hiked with other people?
Yes. Yeah. And it's better. It is better.
That I don't mind. Alone?
Yeah. And, like, we've done that, like, you know, out of necessity and just, like, for fun a little bit and stuff. But, like, so I was on Pinhoti with, I hiked Pinhoti with my friend. His name is Gray Squirrel. He was 68 when I met him on the AT. He was, like, 72 when we hiked Pinhoti together. I love that man. He's, like, my best friend is like a 72-year-old. But we were like walking along. We're like, wow, the ground is sparkling. It's so pretty. It's spiders. Like diamonds. It's spider eyes. Yeah, it's just like 8 spider eyes per spider. Just like, and there are so many. I'm like, I just didn't need to know. I didn't need to know that those were out there. And I don't know. Yeah, I hate like eating. It's not even so much that I dislike the hiking at night, but I hate setting up camp at night, not knowing my surroundings, like wigs me out a little bit, like throughout the whole night, just kind of not being super aware of what I'm around. If I am gonna night hike to wake up early, it would be the way. So just like early morning hike, like I'll wake up at 4 o'clock and hike through the dark in the morning before I want to hike after 8 p.m.
Yeah. I think that might be somewhat of an East Coast versus West Coast thing, because I didn't enjoy it all that much on the AT, but on the PCT way more so. I think that's just the difference of being with having a canopy versus just being out in the open.
I can see that. Also,
just brutally hot days out on the PCT kind of forces you to night hike sometimes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you're in the mood for it, it's amazing. And then, there were times on the AT where I was thinking to myself, like, this is the stupidest shit of all time. I'm definitely going to get hurt because I can't see where all my steps are. And, like, I'm going to step on a rock and break my ankle.
Yeah. This one, I know people like it because we've had people on the show that like it. But people who, like, not just do it, but enjoy it. Desert hiking. And maybe this is the ginger in me.
That's a good one.
But it's too freaking hot. And doing any sort of elevation gain in desert heat is, like, you might as well take the elevation gain and triple it for how it feels. And there's no shade. And it's almost worse to take a break because you're hot in your break and you have nowhere to hide. And there's nothing enjoyable about
Mexico. I love it.
I don't get it.
I think I mean I don't know California, but I think New Mexico is like, so we went to Utah on a road trip and I like actually didn't like Utah. I was just like, there's no life anywhere. Like there's nothing. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like, it wasn't my favorite. And then I was anticipating that for New Mexico and then loved it. Like there is a lot of biodiversity there. I mean, not that shade is plentiful, but like it was findable. And the wildflowers were super, super cool. Desert flowers are
So I liked
crazy.
the super bloom. Super bloom, I'm all here for it. What I didn't like is that sometimes the shade comes with pricklies. So you think you're getting in shade and it's all just sharp because you're sitting under like a spiky thing. Or snakes everywhere. You know, like, where are they going to be? I don't know. Can I walk through this off trail to go over to sit over here? I don't know, because there could be snakes all around. And if you're going through the desert because you're doing the PCT or something, makes sense. If you live somewhere and you're like, I'm going to go do a weekend backpacking trip, I'm going to go to the desert as my place of choice to do it, that's where I don't get it.
I can see that.
It'd be like going to Moab.
What's that, Zach?
You like going to Moab?
I do like going to Moab. But I also, a lot of the time, sleep in my car. And a lot of the times am on trails that are wide enough and groomed enough where I can see everything around me.
Yeah.
And it's not multi-day backpacking.
Sure. I'm not shitting on your choice, actually. That's a
No,
good
you just wanted
entry.
to say the word.
Yeah. Well, that was
my tough
a
word.
future question of the day.
Yeah. What's the difference?
What, Moab's is your tough word?
Yeah, because apparently I say it wrong.
How do you say it?
Moab. Moab.
Moab. Mine is and I still can't. Minneapolis. Okay.
Minneapolis, yeah.
Do you have time to derail you for a second? Okay.
Always.
That's all this podcast
I thought that
is.
the Twin Cities, when we went to Minnesota for the Superior Hiking Trail, I thought that the Twin Cities were Indianapolis and Minneapolis because they rhymed, and did not know until we were in Minneapolis, which I believe it is Minneapolis, not Minneapolis, but
Yeah.
I can't get out of my head that it is Minneapolis because it rhymes with Indianapolis because they're the Twin Cities.
Sure.
Think of it as Annapolis, but a mini one.
Minneapolis. But
It's
it's
just-
Minnesota.
It's just Annapolis, but it's a mini
Yeah,
one.
Okay, a Minneapolis. Okay. Yeah, because then the third, no offense, sorry, redheaded stepchild of the twin these
Offense
twin
taken.
It was
cities.
almost more offensive that she said no offense.
Yeah.
of Indianapolis and Minneapolis is Annapolis, right? I think it's in New Jersey or something.
don't know.
There's a city called
I don't
Annapolis,
actually
and
know.
it's over on the East Coast.
Funny thing, I actually had at the last job I worked at before this one, I had it was either a coworker or it was my boss. I can't really remember now. So much time has passed. Who used the phrase "redheaded stepchild"? Oh, it was a coworker talking to my boss at my desk. And I think he felt so bad. He wrote me an email afterwards.
Oh.
It's a small, 40-person company.
Yeah.
He could have walked over to my desk, explaining what it meant because I didn't understand what he was talking. He apologized, and I was like, "For what?" And he was like, "What I said." And I was like, "What'd you say?" And he had to explain the whole redheaded stepchild thing. And I was like, I'll laugh at that.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. My next entry is out and back hikes.
Yeah.
Not that I think that anyone is super into out and back hikes, but I think that there are a lot of people that are way more tolerant of this as a hiking / backpacking style than I am. So I'm heading to Washington in 2 weeks. And the only stipulation I gave to my friend who I'm backpacking with is I refuse to do any sort of out and back hiking. Like, to me, you're just doing the same hike twice, where there are options to not do that. And every time in my life where I've done an out and back hike, the return trip feels 5 times longer than the initial version of it. So to me, it feels like wasted time, and I don't know.
Man,
I'm
somebody
too
paid
type
me
A.
to take them on an out and back hike the other day. Oops.
I know that I'm weird. Like, I'll do anything to avoid out and back hikes. I'll pay way too much money for a shuttle service to get me back to my car than to retrace my steps.
Yeah, this goes back to I after long distance hiking, now hate day hiking standpoint, but I used to love day hiking, and out and backs were the most popular kinds, and I liked them because I could just zoom down. My knees don't like downhills as much anymore, but now I'm finding after doing long trails, not only do I not like day hiking, but I get so bored if it's an out and back. I oftentimes don't make it to the point because I'll go out and I'll mosey and I'll get a certain way and I'm like, I'll just turn around here, and
Yeah.
I'll just turn around because
Yeah.
I'm just bored.
The place in Golden that I hike the most often is North Table Mountain, and I'm very blessed that there's so many loop options there. Even if it's a trail I've done a million times, even if I'm very familiar with it, my perception of the hike is so different if it's a loop, even if it's a lollipop, even if there's some of it that is an out and back. Just having new terrain, I don't know, maybe this is the ADHD in me. It warps the time perspective so intensely that I refuse to do out and back hikes most of the time.
Here.
Certain day hikes I'll make exceptions for.
I would say so most of my backpacking trips I did before the AT were out and backs, just because I didn't know day hikes or backpacking trips, know what I was getting into, and it gives yourself an easy out from a navigational perspective too.
Sure.
So I just remember always having the hardest time finding the trailhead I was looking for, and so I would just park where I saw a trail and just okay, we'll just do this, and then we'll just turn around and come back, and then from lack of knowledge perspective, it's safer. And then for backpacking, for me too, it's like, okay, I think I can do 5 days, but I don't want to put myself in this position where I have to, like if day 2 comes and we don't think that that's an option, I can turn around and come back.
Yeah. The one thing I will say that's nice with out and back day hikes is most of the time the way up is uphill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Way back is downhill. So I'm trying to make more of those adventures, like with one of those fast packs, so I can run it on the way back. And literally, that's my hack to warp the time, is literally just to make the way back physically faster. My last entry for hiking things I just don't get. This one thing is going to make me unpopular, but I've tried it enough times to say it with confidence. It doesn't jive with me. Hiking while high. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. We are on YouTube, but I know it's very common. A lot of people that I backpacked with refuse to backpack when they're not high. That's cool. I don't have any judgment to anyone that does it, but I've tried it with my own brain chemistry, and it doesn't work for me.
Little tidbit I'll input here is, if you'd like to see Zach high, August Patreon.
Yeah, we had fun.
A hoot. I think for our September Paint and Sip Patreon, it should also be Zach It's High. That should just
Do I
be
still
like,
get to sip wine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do a Zach Paint and Puff.
Do I just get high for all the Patreons from now on?
I think so. You said after the last one, this might be how I do Patreon from now on.
No, I said I'm a weed guy. Now I'm a weed guy. We did have fun. That went better than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Which was such the contrast relative to July's Patreon, which was the diarrhea.
Keep a straight face the whole time.
Yeah, that was not good.
Okay. Please.
No, I like that we're experimenting. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying.
That's not like blame.
No. I like the novelty, but it just didn't go very well. It's not one we'll be recreating, is what I'll say.
I'm going to show Heidi a clip out of context, just so that you can get an idea for what, and I'm going to hold it up to the microphone, for what happened when Zach got high. Oh, hold on.
Dying? No. Heart attack? A stroke?
Is this charades?
If somebody stroked out like that, they would be do it again. Bozo the Clown. My ass crack. No.
So yeah, the video there is really part of the pleasure.
That was more embarrassing than I remember.
And that's just a clip. We got a whole 30 to 45 minutes of it for you.
You guys still have one more, right?
Yes, my last one is people who don't filter water just because they're outside. Like, oh, the mountains are so great here. I'm so high up. I'm just going to not filter my water. I get that, like, there's that connection to the nature, like, feel cool, outdoorsy type of vibe that goes along with just drinking your water raw.
Raw dogging the water.
Raw dogging that water. But, like, there's floaty bits in there, right? Like, you get little floaty dirts. You get little floaty bugs. You get little, like, there's stuff in it that I'm not even filtering it so that I don't shit myself a week from now. I'm filtering it so that all these floaty bits don't end up in my mouth.
So I was hiking with Jabba when he hit the crossroads he started off as a guy that doesn't filter pristine water sources, and he was the judge of that. And then, not to tip the hand, but guess what got him off the Colorado Trail? So yeah, after we had parted ways, he got like a crippling case of giardia. And it was maybe the most ultimate I told you so moment of my life.
I was going to say, fucked up thought of the week. I kind of like when people who don't filter water get sick.
To his defense, at least now he has changed his stance on it, because I know people that are like, they'll get giardia and they're still in the camp of like, you know what's one bad draw, what could possibly...
Those are the people that can't accept defeat. Those are the ones that are like, I got to double down here.
Well, I think some people... And maybe they're right. I don't actually know, so I'm not going to critique them. But some people think that after they get it, their immune system is now able to handle giardia. We should get somebody who's qualified to speak on this, because that would not be my interpretation of it.
I mean, I think yes. Like, if you're in other countries and stuff too, it's like people who've been drinking from that water source for their whole life don't get sick, and then like
you have one ice cube in Mexico and you're dead for a week. Yeah.
maybe that can be, what's that segment you came up with? Things to trigger the internet?
Oh, yeah.
We made a segment, we're getting really tangented, but we made a segment, and by we I mean Zach, that is like an inside joke for people listening to the podcast versus the people who follow us on social media but haven't listened to the episode yet. And that's where we say something that Sarah can clip a video of out of context that we can post on social that will absolutely trigger people watching.
Yeah.
But
Trigger warning
you
was
guys
the-
will know the joke.
Yeah,
because
right.
you'll
Listeners
be listening.
are in on it, and then the social media folk will get mad.
Yeah.
It'll be fun for
And
everybody.
then we're going to sit there and laugh. Okay, cool.
Last one.
Yeah.
I just thought of it too. I was like writing them down because I kept thinking of them and forgetting them, and then it just came to me. Sunrise hikes. Fuck sunrise.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Oh my gosh. So like all of the hiking we did in Guatemala pretty much had to be guided, or at least they told us it did, and so we're like, okay, fine. But they just are convinced that we really want to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and really want to see the sunrise and hike. Well, I already said I don't really like night hiking, so the first part of the hiking in the dark is already not my favorite. But just like, why 4 a.m.? It's pretty at noon, It's pretty in the afternoon. You can catch a sunset without waking
I was going to say,
up
give me sunset
at
all day.
4 a.m.
I'm awake naturally.
And
The
then
sun-
like we had in the Smokies for me on the thru hike, like a group of friends woke up to catch the sunrise from Klingman's. It was so fucking cold that night. Like, I mean, I think it was like 25 degrees when they're all getting up and getting ready and packing. And no, I will stay in my sleeping bag until the sun is out.
And that's the coldest part of the day is right
Yeah.
before sunrise.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I did
yeah.
one sunrise hike on the AT, and that was McAfee Knob, and that's because everyone else was doing it, and if they jump off the bridge, I'll go too.
Yes.
And it was just like there's nothing about McAfee Knob that my brain remembers that is gratitude for me waking up early enough to see the sunrise.
Yeah, I saw it in the
I just-
afternoon. It was gorgeous.
If the
Sounds
sun's
like we have
not
a
out of
table
bed,
full of
I'm not out
morning
of
people
bed.
here, which I love it.
And I'm like, I don't mind morning. Like, I wake up earlier than my husband.
What's your wake up time?
Like 6,
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
early.
really
That's
with like
morning
the
person stuff.
in the summer, and then in the winter it's when the sunrise is then. Like,
Sure.
I like to rise with the sun, but I
Yeah.
don't mind waking up. I just don't understand
With the sun, not before the sun.
Not yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sun should be the first one up every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Sun.
This next thing, first off, very dad of you to be late on the game with this next point on the show notes.
Is this common knowledge?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I've even brought this up maybe at some point on the show.
Oh, maybe.
But I saw it on Instagram or Facebook or something that you
Yeah.
had just recently learned about it,
Yeah.
and I'm stoked because I have the best one.
Well, let's assume that there's maybe another dad or two out there that haven't figured this one out
No, this
yet.
is great.
Yeah. So a friend texted me, if you're looking for a good time to Google Florida man plus your birthday. Have you done this before?
I don't know if I have, but I've seen this as
Okay.
a thing.
It's
yeah.
like
I've seen
how
other
you
people's
have
results.
Yeah.
like how you have like a trading card, or how you have like a horoscope or a zodiac. You have your very own Florida man, and sometimes you have to leave out the year. Sometimes, like if you have one, you have to like leave off the year. But if you search your birthday in Florida man, you'll get an article, and that is your Florida man,
Yeah.
right? It's like your tarot card.
I have
Okay, so-
options.
Yeah. So Heidi, give us your preferred Florida man entry. What's your birthday, first of all?
April 14th.
April
The best
14th.
day to have a birthday.
Yeah, duh.
Let's throw that out there. Okay. Florida man accused of beating a shark with a hammer arrested.
Love that.
All of these are always
Yeah,
hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, it really. I'm very grateful to my Florida man because it's such a good one to have. Are you ready for mine?
Go.
Yeah.
Florida man hit pregnant girlfriend with bag of tortilla chips over baby's paternity.
Well, that had to be something. Tortilla is not the hardest, but
My first result on mobile, I'm getting a different first result on desktop somehow, but is Florida man claims bag of cocaine, meth found wrapped around his penis aren't his.
This is the segment we
how
have
that
to do
got there.
honorable mentions for. So as you see your runners up, we need the honorable mentions. Here's one of mine. Florida man reportedly tells cops he thought playing basketball naked would quote unquote enhance his skill level.
it's more aerodynamic, right? Absolutely.
Oh, God.
I'm with him on that one. Florida. This one came up twice. Florida man arrested outside of Olive Garden after eating pasta belligerently. And then the other headline is for this, I'm assuming the same thing. Florida man shoveling spaghetti in mouth arrested at Olive Garden. And like, quite frankly, I just identify with that. Like, Same, probably.
Yeah.
Talk about food places. Florida man flashes buttocks at IHOP after impersonating a police officer to get free food.
My next one is Florida man says he punched ATM for giving too much cash. Florida. That might be a one-off segment, but maybe we'll do that with every guest that we have.
Florida man tells children where babies come from on playground.
Oh, that's a way
Florida
to go,
man
at least.
arrested for DUI while lemur and wallaby escape from truck during traffic stop. Tough times for former edutainment star. Oh, Zaboomafoo. Isn't this
Zaboomafoo.
Zaboomafoo?
That's the lemur.
As I guess that he was the lemur on the run.
Man.
Oh man, I love this.
Well, I think we should bring this back when we have new guests in studio and just do their birthdays.
Like that should just be their
Yeah.
guest introduction.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to wait for the end when we choose the sticker name
Yeah.
or the sticker code. Sticker code for this episode. Comment on the episode art on Instagram with what your Florida man
Yes.
caption
Love
is.
that. Love
Just
that.
give us your Florida man. What does it say? I cannot wait to read these.
Yeah.
And if you're from Florida, we're not sorry.
You did a gross or not gross. I actually do have an entry, but like yours, this is a no contest, but it's so disgusting that I think I need to say it just for the therapeutic properties.
Okay.
So Ruby, our/Jenna's little white dog, the one that you did a wonderful painting of, 12 pounds, seems very sweet and innocent. She's so attached to Jenna that she gets like violently depressed every time Jenna leaves the house. Every single time she just goes and crawls under the bed or will do something weird. Here's one for the weird category. Is Jenna left and she got into the trash and ate a used tampon.
Oh, dogs are really weird about
do
this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have had to buy a lot of more. I've probably bought more underwear since having Harper than ever in my life because
Okay.
Harper will, like, to the point that when we come to the podcast, I have to close her out of my bedroom. She'll go through the hamper and she'll chew holes through the crotch of all of my underwear. She is a dirty, dirty girl.
Well, the gross or not gross gets grosser. So I wake up in the morning feeding the twins at 5 a.m., whatever. I see a puked up used tampon in the corner, but the twins are screaming, so I have to go downstairs and get a bottle first things first. I feed the twins. I come back out, and Ruby is eating the used tampon, which she had already thrown up. She got
Dogs love that.
so she was on her second cycle of it. So I'm pretty sure she puked up the same tampon twice.
This is nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's gross. Yeah, that's just gross.
Is that a gross one?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's gross.
So if you want to burn that painting that you made, I totally understand.
No.
She can add a tampon to it.
Yeah. We have this one. Do you want to do this?
How's the first week of living with Garrett? It doesn't feel like living with Garrett yet because we're still moving everything in. So it's more like going through a maze to try to find a surface to step on to get to different rooms, followed by chaos.
I'll be excited to see how long it takes you to unpack.
Well, last night was his last day in his place, and they were expected to be fully moved out and done by 9. I went to sleep hours before he got home. He actually got home just in time for me to run to the bathroom in pain because I had my stomach cramps.
But you're still at his old place, or you're at the new place?
I'm at the new place.
Okay.
Because I'm there.
Yeah.
But it's covered in stuff, and he was drastically behind.
Yeah.
So he finished at about 2-3 a.m. last night, around when I woke up. Yeah, so it still doesn't feel like it. We're still in that interim phase.
Nothing breaks in at home like diarrheaing and vomiting.
I got the first poop in the house.
Nice.
Yeah, we were sitting there the other day, and I was like, have you pooped here yet? And he was like, no.
Yeah.
So I was like, dibs.
Well done. Way to market territory.
Yeah, it's good he doesn't listen to this.
Mailbag.
Mailbag. Hi, Zach and Chance. Sorry. Hey, Zach and Chance. I spent most of my life vacationing in national parks. I've been fortunate enough to visit 49 states and hiked a lot in many. In the last 30 years, I lived in San Diego and enjoyed the local mountains and Sierras more than I could imagine. We used to camp at Kitchen Creek, Mount Laguna, Big Bear, Idlewild, and other places along the PCT and the Sierra, and people in my group always asked what the extra cooler was for, all the hot dogs, etc. I always wanted to have a supply if the timing was right for PCT hikers to cross our path. We had some fun chats around the campfire. As the economy would have it, we had to relocate to the east and to a flat as a pancake state. We've been here almost a year, and it's not been an easy adjustment. Less expensive, yes. Inspiring, no. I was reading more books on thru-hiking, and due to my long commute, started looking for podcasts. Backpacker Radio is keeping me sane right now. Listening to the banter, the overall enthusiasm of those who have done a thru-hike, and even the trail correspondents and their list of apprehensions allows me to relive the moments I've spent on trails over the years. I'm only on episode 12, but look forward to all the variety to come. Keep up the great work. If you haven't read George Spearing's book on the PCT, give it a try. 6 stars if I was to leave a podcast review. Cheers. And Zach, did you hike the AT? Beer emoji. And Chance, how do you keep that much chocolate from melting? You eat it fast enough.
That's a throwback.
From Randy Ross.
Just like the wrapper.
I would be curious to get our friend Randy's take on what he thinks of the podcast, because this is sent from 12 episodes in.
Yeah.
Now we're at 700 something.
Yeah. Do we hold our?
Yeah. He'll be like, I got to episode 100 and I quit.
Yeah, downgrading to 3
Yeah.
stars. You guys suck.
But this episode's a good one, so thanks to Heidi for keeping us afloat for a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
5-star review. This is from Nice, and one of the E's appears to be the Euro sign. 5-star review. Hi, my name is Ron Burgundy, and I love this show. Test, turtle.
Okay.
I like to party.
Is this a reference to
I don't
something?
know.
Yeah,
what
that's
Testis Turtle is.
Ron Burgundy. That's Anchorman, yeah?
Well, the Ron
Well,
Burgundy
yes.
part, I didn't understand the rest of it.
No, I don't understand the rest of it either.
Anyways,
Yeah.
but thanks for the review nonetheless. If you guys
Mhm.
want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars, as long as it's not 1, 2, 3, or 4. Also, mailbag, you can get a hold of us at podcast@thetrek.co, and the link to leave us a voicemail will be in the show notes. I would read the URL, but it's chaotic, so it doesn't make any sense.
You got a bonus message.
Yeah, this is from our wonderful Patreon supporter. I won't tip the name because the story here is funny. Hey guys, absolutely love listening to you try to work out my name. That's exactly why I didn't tell you how it's actually pronounced.
Love that.
So here it is. It's pronounced Cook. I know that doesn't make sense. I was saying Coke is obviously German and actually translates to cook. So my best guess is some of my ancestors either got tired of everyone in America mispronouncing it or wanted to put some distance on their heritage after the whole Nazi thing. Thank you guys so much for the awesome show. I love every episode. It's truly one of my favorite things in life. That's from Derek. Cook, not Coke. I've been saying Coke 100% of the time.
Yes, you have.
And this goes to any of our Patreon supporters. I'm sure I'm butchering a number of these names.
That's half the fun.
Yeah, so not only tell us what the correct pronunciation is, but give us a fun story to go with it, because Derek's was quite good.
I also like the approach of knowing Zach's going to fuck it up and waiting until he does so that you can get a laugh out of it first.
Laugh with me, or laugh at me, not with me.
Yes.
Thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Austin Ford, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Thane,
Ish.
Derek Cook, Do Good Pantry, Eric Casper.
The Friendly Ghost.
Why is his bolded? He's
He's
a new
newer.
one. Yeah. Eric Hoffman, Greg McDaniel.
May he bring honor to his name.
I like that Rachel's including. Anyways, Liz Seeger, Matt Sukup, Mike Poisel, Morgan Luke,
I am your father.
Patrick Ciancialo. That's probably another one I'm definitely butchering. Sawyer Products, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
and Tracy Trigger. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You can follow us at Backpacker Radio on Instagram, TikTok, and not Threads. I think Threads is dead.
Yeah, there is. Zach did a thread.
I made 3 posts, I think, and we're retiring.
Yeah. Well, you didn't say where you can follow us on X.
You can follow us at Backpacker Pod on X. I love how much shit that's getting, but nobody's actually getting off the platform.
Did you see the giant strobe
They had to
light
take it down.
epilepsy inducing
Yeah, they took it down.
fucking X? I saw that and I was like, I would literally have a seizure if this was outside of my.
Yeah,
There's no way.
it is getting a little Gotham-esque, I guess.
Yeah.
Freudian slip there. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Heidi
At Sketching Summits on Instagram or www.sketchingsummits.com.
She was ready for that. You can follow Chance.
And you can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey, or you can get my book, well, or, not just or, you can get my book, Hiking from Home, A Long-Distance Hiking Guide for Family and Friends, on Amazon.
Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials are my books. You guys should subscribe to us on YouTube. We're doing videos now. What's up, YouTube?
Hello, Internet.
How's it going? Our videos are great. Sarah's doing an awesome job, and you guys should get more of our video content by subscribing on YouTube.
It is kind of funny, like, seeing myself in the videos, because I can avoid listening to myself on this, but now that we're posting the video segments...
You have to watch yourself.
Well, the one where I was talking about not cleaning out my fridge for a week... There's comments on it asking if I'm okay, because I look like I've really beat myself up for it. Like, I look like I'm really just, like...
These are comments on YouTube?
No, on the Instagram of that YouTube video, where it just looks like I'm just upset. Like, I'm so upset at having done this. I was watching it, and, like, from my perspective, I'm like, oh, that's the day it was fucking freezing in here. And so if you watch it from that perspective, you can see that it's just, like, pure cold.
The AC is very menopausal, because I've been working from here more regularly because it's chaos at my house. And some days, legitimately, I came here when it was like 95 degrees outside, and I had to put I leave a jacket in the office in the heat of the summer because it gets so cold in here.
I brought a winter sweater, and it's 90-something outside.
Yeah. I don't know how Heidi's doing being from South Carolina, but maybe...
Thriving.
Good. Thriving. That's what the beer is for.
I did bring a sweater on purpose.
Good.
You see, it's cold.
And that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.